Friday, February the 12th, 2021. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said podcast. Valentine's Day weekend coming up. We got a very special show for you here on That's What G Said. It's going to be NBA, who's hot, who's not. We're going to take an hour and go over everything going on in the world of NBA with our good buddy Toff 21 Sports. Erik joins us to go through everything happening, what we've noticed through the first 20, 25 games or so of the NBA season. Then we'll talk about what's happening this weekend at Stable Duel. You know, I'm going to give you a Friday full card analysis from Sam Houston. I'll go through the full card myself. Then for Saturday, Sam Houston, we've got Sam Sherman joining us, hot off of a win as an owner with Insurrection. He's going to talk about the full Saturday card for us, with us. And then Emily Gullikson, she's going to talk the Saturday Fairground Stakes. It's the Risen Star and the Rachel Alexandra over there. So Kentucky Derby points on the line for the Phillies headed to the Oaks, and we close things out wrestling with Chad Cooper. Chad joins us to do what we do each and every week. We go around the gamut. We talk about everything on Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, AEW, Dynamite, and NXT. So in about a 45-minute conversation, you can get caught up to everything happening in WWE, AEW, and NXT. We're going to get to all of that in just a moment. But first, we're just a couple days out from Valentine's Day. So if you're listening to this on Friday the 12th, you still have time. Maybe you're doing a Valentine's Day thing late. Maybe you want to send a gift to someone. Cera Candle Company, C-E-R-A Candle Company. The website is ceracandles.com, C-E-R-A candles.com. They have a Valentine's Day box for $20. You get to pick two of their scents: Fresh Roses, Tuxedo, and Date Night. You pick two of those three. They'll put it together for you in a nice little Valentine's Day box. This is a small business. This is a super affordable Valentine's Day gift. The goal of Cera Candles was to create a candle 100% natural, clean burning, high quality that everyone can enjoy. Here is why Cera Candles is the best place to get your candles from. All natural soy wax, free from toxins that are found in paraffin wax, which a lot of the other candles that you probably have used, that they have that paraffin wax. The all-natural soy wax will actually hold a scent longer and will give you a better scent. It'll burn up to 50% longer than those paraffin wax candles. So they're healthier for you. They're going to burn longer for you. The wicks, 100% lead-free wicks. They're cotton wicks, completely natural scents. These are made in micro batches. They're hand-poured to ensure the highest quality. 100% locally sourced, handcrafted in the USA. My buddy Tyler Herringer, you've heard him on the show multiple times. He's the head honcho over at ceracandles.com. 25 different scents available for you, 3 different sizes. Hey, maybe you want to put a different candle in the Valentine's Day box, or maybe you want to buy a few other candles for other family members, friends. Let Tyler know. He'll put those for you in the Valentine's Day box. They give you instructions on details, how to keep your candle clean, how to make sure you get the perfect burn. And when you use the promo code GINO, 10% off your purchase. Promo code GINO gets you 10% off your purchase. These are a great gift. Valentine's Day coming up. Purchase a few of these Valentine's Day gift boxes for your friends, for your family members. They will love the scents from ceracandles.com. C-E-R-A candles.com. Promo code GINO will get you 10% off your purchase. Let's get into our first interview. We're going to talk NBA with Erik. Toff 21 Sports talking NBA. We're going to take about an hour conversation going through everything happening in the West. Then we head on over and talk about the East. We basically discuss every single team in the NBA in an hour plus conversation. Enjoy.
NBA. Who's hot? Who's not? Who's hot? Who's not?
Well, the football's in. So we are not going to be talking football, NFL without games. We'll still give you the news if anything goes on in the NFL scope. And once we get closer to the season, we'll have previews and prediction shows. We'll do draft stuff. We'll have all sorts of stuff. And a lot of the time it'll be with this gentleman who's joining us right now. But this conversation is going to be a lot about basketball. NBA, we're going to start doing these weekly Who's Hot, Who's Not segments with Erik, Toff 21 Sports, where we can discuss what's been going down in the NBA. Now our focus as sort of as sports fans, as bettors, fantasy players, will shift over to the NBA. We are 25 games into a season that's going to be a little shorter this year, so we're about a third of the way into the season. Erik joins us. Erik, let's get to the NBA in a second, but give us a little bit of a bow, kind of your final overall thoughts on what we saw in the Super Bowl. You did a pretty good job giving us some winning props and sort of we were pretty good with our analysis of the game, knowing that the Chiefs and that O-line was going to be a big problem for them.
I mean, it played out great for me. I mean, I did well. I made some money with my bets. The one thing that I really didn't understand, and I guess this is why Brady's Brady, I look at it like if Brady was the quarterback of the Chiefs, that game would have been a lot closer because there's no way he'd be doing those 8-step drops that Mahomes was doing. I didn't really understand why Reed didn't do any adjustment in game and why he kept on going with the 8-step drops. Like, why wasn't anything like some quick hitters? Where were the jet sweeps to try to get Tyreek to the outside? There's just no real in-game adjustments. And for me, the big sequence was the end of the second. And why was Reed taking those timeouts? If he doesn't take those timeouts, I mean, that game probably plays out. I'm not saying that the Chiefs win, but it's not going to be 31-9.
That was shades of old Andy Reid, where people used to really criticize him about his time management and clock management and things like that. And yeah, it was it was something I've talked about a little bit on my other show earlier today. But I wonder with Andy Reid, like it was so unfortunate for him having to go into that game with what had happened with his son a couple days earlier and the car accident and everything. Like, I mean, we're people more than we are our jobs, right? He's a person first and foremost, more than he is a football coach. Like it's hard to, I'm sure, be doing anything without something like that weighing on him just a few days after, and then going into having to call, like one of the biggest games of your entire life. It just, I don't think he as a coach had a very good game, and I wonder how much he really was able to kind of be all in there.
Oh, for sure. And when he coached in Philadelphia, the summer his older son OD'd, the next year he went 4-12, and then the Eagles fired him. So, I mean, and it's 100% true. That had to be weighing on you. If it's not weighing on you, then you're not a person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that definitely had to be on the forefront of his mind, and definitely probably affected his coaching during the game. Someone was talking about, I was listening to some podcast, and they were talking about they think he's going to quit and Bieniemy's going to actually take over next year.
And you never know when something like that happens. It's so unfortunate before such a big moment for all of them. It's one of those things where he pairs with everyone involved. But and just getting back to the result of the game, it was we could have all predicted that Tampa might win, but I just think seeing Patrick Mahomes struggle that bad behind that offensive line was something that we've never really seen before, and to see it on the biggest stage was definitely a surprise for a lot of us.
But it goes back to, I mean, this is like why I love defensive and offensive lines, and I hammer it every time you and I talk, and on my stuff too, is you have to be able to win the trenches. You can have all the Tyreek Hills and Kelce's and Edwards-Helaire and Mahomes you want, but if those guys don't have time to get the ball, if Mahomes doesn't have time to get the ball to those guys, it's null and void. That's why I know, when I cap, if a lineman's out, to me that affects the game a lot more if the Tyreek's out of the game.
Running back or someone like that who you could plug and play in, right? You can fill someone like that in. So yeah, we got a taste of that on the highest level this past weekend, and we'll get back to talking NFL as big things happen. But now our focus is going to head on over to the NBA. Erik, we're going to start talking weekly NBA. We'll have these who's hot, who's not segments. We are about 25 games in. Some teams have had some COVID issues so far. Others have not had as many. But the level of basketball probably wasn't quite as good through the first couple of weeks with the short turnaround. Feels like it's getting a little bit better now. So let's kind of go through some of the things that have stood out so far to you. I'll mention some of the things that I've noticed, some of the teams that maybe have surprised us. Who are or what are a few of the things that stood out with you? Where do you want to start?
Well, the main thing that stood out to me was last Friday, I bet the Raptors +6, hankered down here in the office to watch the game, and then all this stuff starts coming out about Durant not playing because of he was in close contact with a trainer, rode in a car with him. But then he came back in the game, and then he left the game. I guess I look at it like this: like if he did have close contact, and then he went and he played, did he give like close contact with all those guys he was just on the basketball court with? And this guy is a trainer with the team, so why was it just Durant? The whole thing gives me zero faith that this All-Star game, which nobody wants to play in, the NBA is gonna effectively be able to pull off.
It just shows you how much better the setup was for them in the bubble. And, they can't do it with a full league for a full season in a bubble. They were able to do it because of they were able to get playoffs set up and every round there would be more and more people getting eliminated and leaving. But, in this kind of a situation where you're smaller teams, smaller rosters too. You miss 2 or 3 guys, you're in some trouble, and it's definitely impacted some teams early on. Although I guess when you just take a quick glance at the standings, you probably wouldn't be too just shocked by what you saw. Who are some of the teams that are kind of standing out to you?
Well, I mean, obviously, you got to talk about the Utah Jazz. They're 17-3 in their last 20. They're playing great basketball. They're averaging 17 threes a game, and they're on pace to be a better three-point shooting team than the early when the Warriors were winning stuff with Clay and Steph and all those guys, and the Rockets when the Rockets during the D'Antoni Harden era. They're on pace to break that, and nobody realizes it. They have this small market thing going on where if they were in a Philadelphia, New York, Miami, whatever, Los Angeles, whatever, they would be on the lead story in ESPN. And what they're doing and how they're doing it is awesome. They're getting these shooters to put around Donovan Mitchell. There's getting these overlooked guys. Perfect example, Royce O'Neal. Develop him into a shooter where he's shooting 45% from the three-point land. They have 6 rotational guys that are averaging over 37% three-point shooting. And then you have Mitchell at the top of the key where he can dive and dish. Rudy Gobert to crash the boards. How they're building it is great. And you have to think of it like this. If you're not one of those top free agents, but one of those middle tier ones, and you have the place in Utah where you can go develop your game and be in the playoffs routinely, why wouldn't you want to go there? And it's not like Salt Lake. It's I've been to Salt Lake once, and it blew me away. It was way better than my perception of it was.
What I like and what's impressed me about their team this year, too, is, you think Utah, you generally think, they're going to have a really good defense, right, with Gobert, and they're 3rd in defensive rating. But they're 4th in offensive rating. Their offense has been very smooth. They are really well built. Clarkson off the bench is probably a candidate for 6th man of the year. They have Mitchell sort of stepping up into that role. I think a key for them coming up is going to be a stretch of games that's going to be a little bit tough for them, and they're going to have to try to navigate this stretch with either a banged-up Conley or without Conley. He's been playing really, really well for them. He had a bad year last year. He was just awful. But you and I are recording this game on Thursday, or recording this show on Thursday night, and they just beat Boston on Tuesday night. They're going to have they have Milwaukee coming up, Miami, Philly, Clippers, Charlotte, Lakers. So that's a tough little stretch where you've got the Heat haven't been playing as well, but you've got the Bucks, you've got Philly, you got the Clippers back to back, and then you've got the Lakers. So if they come out of this stretch still playing well, this is going to be one of those early, really tough stretches for them where we'll kind of see how good this team is. Because I think the same gripe we can have with Utah is one that we've probably had with them, forever with Gobert. In some situations, he kind of gets played off the court come playoff time. Can this version of the Jazz with Gobert being that rim stopper, will they get enough elsewhere? If they're playing a team that tries to go small, can they match up with them? I think for Utah, they want to try their best to – it looks like right now in the West, you've kind of got a top 3, with the Clippers and the Lakers and then Utah. I think Utah in particular would love to try to avoid those teams because they could beat maybe the Lakers or the Clippers in one series, I still don't know if they would be good enough to beat the Clippers and then the Lakers or vice versa back to back.
I think they match up better with the Clippers
I
just
agree.
because you can't, like, who's going to guard AD? That's
he
the
pulls
big thing.
Gobert out.
Yeah.
He kind of takes it, and because Gobert has won a lot of the defensive awards recently, and AD kind of like takes it personally that he wants to be a really good defender, he goes at them, and AD kind of does that. He really loves the matchups with the other big men like Jokic and Gobert, where he can kind of show like, hey, I'm still probably as good of a big man, as versatile, and can do as much as anyone can.
But it also changes the way, like, the Jazz play. And I've watched 6 Jazz games this year. Their whole thing is they just kind of funnel everyone to drive, and Gobert's the rim protector. When AD's in there, AD's going to draw him out. You have nobody to protect the rim, so that makes everyone else force their guy to stay in front of them. So
when you have LeBron
totally
and you have a wide open lane like that, it's completely different. Like they can, yeah, you're right. Like they match up a little bit better because Serge will try to sort of draw him out, but it's a little bit different. Like Serge isn't, it's not quite the matchup. He's not quite as dominant of a player offensively as AD can be. So yeah, it'll be interesting if those top three will continue to stay up towards the top, because they've sort of separated themselves in the West. While we're talking West right now, we can kind of stay there. Like, yeah, nothing too surprising about the Lakers and the Clippers being up there. They kind of will go through some lulls. Paul George has been banged up a little bit, so the Clippers have lost a couple games that they may have won here and there, but the Lakers have won 6 in a row. They've gone to overtime in 3 straight games that they probably shouldn't have gone, and they've had AD out for a few, but kind of like a lull for a team that won a title last year, and they're early into the season. I'm not too worried about them.
What about, it seems to me like, and granted, I admit it, I have not watched, I've just been looking at the box scores. LeBron's logging some minutes, man.
The last 3, the OT games have killed what was like a fine start for him. And now he's kind of taking it like he's kind of like, oh, I'm fine. I'm going to play all these minutes. And they've gone, he's going to have to sit out a couple games. He doesn't want to. He hasn't sat out a game so far this year. And it's funny because I think a lot of us Laker fans we all just assumed, okay, the Lakers short turnaround, they're going to be probably taking it, like coasting a little bit. And LeBron will be sitting out a lot of games, missing a lot early. He's not going to ramp it up. He's been the opposite. He's been like ramped and like full. He's literally in the top conversation for the MVP. And Lakers are 20-6. They're playing really good basketball. They're only a half game behind the Utah, who's 20-5 overall. Lakers are a couple game up on the Clippers. So it's funny. As a fan, I want him to play less and to sit out a few games here and there. And hopefully Davis will come back later this week, and he'll sort of be able to kind of carry the load for a little bit, and maybe LeBron can take a few games off. But it's like, he's a freak, man. LeBron. He shouldn't
insane.
even be doing what he's doing right now.
I mean, it's just insane, and he's in like phenomenal shape. Like I thought, like when we did our talk back Christmas Eve, I think. I mean, my thing was I thought we were going to see LeBron age, and I look like a fool for saying that just because.
We all did.
He put up 41 minutes against the Thunder, and then they played the Pistons the night before, and that was another 40-minute game. That's just insane, and it just blows my mind what he's doing right now.
He just says, of course I'm tired, but I just don't let myself get tired. He tries to play the mind over matter thing, like Kobe, MJ, like some of the all-time greats do. And he, sometimes you think he's just speaking for the camera, but you know what? The guy is preaching he's practicing what he's preaching, because it sure looks like it's not weighing in on him. I just keep knocking on wood and hoping, because it's gonna at some point get there. But yeah, hopefully at that point, AD is kind of taking the mantle, and the Lakers still have a good team around them, but he's definitely been carrying them to a few wins that they probably would not have had this year. Clippers were shooting. Go ahead.
And then you mentioned MVP. Like, this is the thing for me with MVP. Like, basketball, it seems to me, everyone has these MVP rankings that come out every week so early in the season, which always blows my mind.
Yeah, they got the ladder on NBA.com and all these,
everything. And it blows my mind how Donovan Mitchell, who's playing phenomenal right now, who historically you're the best player with a team with the best record, your name is up there. and he's like nowhere to be found. And I mean, he's having a great year. It's like he's averaging 25, 5, and 4, I believe, off the top of my head. Magic Johnson tweeted out his tiers of MVP. He has Luka, who's playing awful this year, above Donovan Mitchell. I mean, Mitchell gets so much disrespect, and I think it's actually like good because it keeps the Jazz motivated, but it just kind of shows me like how much are people paying attention to what's going on in Utah.
It's so much narrative too, with what's the narrative coming into the year and what's the narrative right now. Like coming into the year, it was Luka, so Luka still hangs around because everybody was like willing Luka to be the MVP before the year started. You know, he was the favorite. LeBron's got a nice narrative because he is so damn old and he's doing this, and we all just kind of assumed, like you said, we all just assumed he was going to go the other way and kind of take it easy this year off of the title last year, and he's just not. I agree in that Mitchell, he needs to get more love because, like right now, looking at the Kia MVP ladder on NBA.com, they've got LeBron, Embiid, which are fine. Jokic, fine. He's had some awesome games. Durant is another good narrative. Sure. Kawhi's been good. He's passing the ball a little bit better. They're good too. But, you know, then you got Giannis, Paul George, Luka, Steph Curry, Lillard, Tatum, Beal, all until they hit Mitchell. I mean, like you said, you're the best player on the best team. You're the guy who has the ball late. Maybe he'll start getting more love. We'll start to create that narrative.
The Wizards are awful. Like, they are really bad. And Beal gets more publicity for it. It just blows my mind. We'll start the train for Mitchell here, who's having an excellent year. He's, like you said, he's up at 24, 5 assists, over 5 assists now, and over 4 rebounds. I mean, on a team that's winning. So a huge stretch coming up. If he gets a couple big wins in this next stretch, like those games coming up with Philly, Milwaukee, the Lakers too with the Clippers, if he gets some big wins and has some big moments there, then I think it'll really, really start. Those top three, they feel like they've separated themselves a little bit. Utah, the Lakers, the Clippers. That next tier of teams in the Western Conference, we've got the Suns, the Trailblazers, the Spurs, the Nuggets. So out of those four, it wouldn't surprise you that the Suns, with Chris Paul coming in, are playing pretty well. It wouldn't surprise you that the Nuggets, who had a good year last year, are, you know, starting to climb back up the ranks after struggling a little bit early, led by Jokic. Wouldn't really surprise you that the Blazers are in that mix. The one team that I don't know how the hell they keep doing it too, Eric, is the freaking Spurs. Like, Aldridge has been hurt too. They're better with him. You start looking at their roster and you're like, this guy's scoring 15 a game. This guy's playing 22 minutes, but they just somehow keep winning games. They're 14-11. They're right now in the 6th spot. So in that like 4, 5, 6, 7 range, nothing too crazy or surprising. Those teams kind of all seem to be where they should be, maybe except for the Spurs. Well, the one thing with the Spurs is, number one, Aldridge has been hurt, and their spacing is insanely better when he's not on the court. Popovich, I don't know what he does, but he gets these guys that are just willing to run through a brick wall for him. I mean, the connection that he's able to get, what is he, like 69, 70 with these 20-year-old kids is insane to me. And then also, ESPN came out with that, what was it, the top 100 players, and DeMar DeRozan wasn't mentioned. I think that's kind of lit a fire under him, because he's playing some inspired basketball. What is he averaging, like 20 23?
Over 20, and almost 7 assists a game with 5 rebounds. You know, for a guard, he's rebounding the ball pretty well too. As far as shooting is concerned, like he's never shot threes at all before, but he's actually shooting 33%, which compared to other train wreck shooters, that's not terrible. That means, hey, you know what? If you're open, you can hit a 3. He's shooting 7 free throws a game, and he shoots 90% from the free throw line, you know? So, and then below him, you know, you've got just a bunch of guys who, like, DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson, Patty Mills, when Rudy Gay in the mix, Lonnie Walker's another one, Derek White, like, these guys. Derek White's only played a few games. He got hurt. Podol, when he's been in the mix, too. These guys are all, like, overachieving, just exactly what we see from the Spurs.
But it goes back to their developmental program. Yep. I mean, Murray does some stuff on the court. He hit that step back the other day against the Golden State Warriors, and you're like, oh shit, like that's a legit, that's an all-star type movie, man. And I've liked him. I like Murray. Maybe those guys can be the Parker and Ginobili that take them to that next level.
The next tier of teams, we've got like the Warriors, who Curry's been playing awesome. The Kings have been playing pretty well too. Halliburton has been a player that's been getting a lot of buzz. He's been very productive. The Grizzlies have had some COVID issues, so you can notice they're only 10-10, where a lot of other teams have played around 25 games or so. They had to miss some games because of COVID issues. And then I'd say one of the most disappointing teams so far in the league right now has probably been the Mavericks, who are 12-14. They have had some COVID issues, though. They've missed Richardson. Porzingis has been hurt. They haven't had a full roster at times. But honestly, Luka came into the season out of shape, pudgy. He's not been as good as we all want him to be. He's still excellent, but he hasn't been an MVP or really playing at an all-NBA level like we've wanted him to be. He's not shooting very, very well, and he's kind of becoming a little chappy. He's as a Laker fan, a lot of people tell me that LeBron complains more than anyone. Luka sure complains quite a bit right now, and he seems like he's like a very pissed off a lot of the time, or fired up, which is great. Like, he wants to win, and he's probably not happy that they're struggling early on, because right now, they're in the 9, 10, 11th spot at 12-14.
The thing I've noticed with them is I really think Silas, the guy that left to become the Rockets coach, he did a lot of the offensive work.
It's a great point.
And I really think that's hurt their offensive structure, and then now with nobody in the stands, you can hear stuff. There was a game, and I'm spacing on the game, and I'm sorry. And Hardaway was yelling at Luka when they're going into a timeout about passing him the ball. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of like little chemistry issue now. Like, Luka, like you said, is out of shape. Plus, there's these rumors now that they're going to ship off Porzingis and for Karl Anthony Towns, who just came back from the COVID list. And I mean, I hate to shift to the Timberwolves because I'm sure no one really cares about the Timberwolves, but I mean, the Timberwolves did all this stuff to get the Russell there, because
D'Angelo and Towns.
D'Lo was his boy. Now they're going to ship them off. What is going on? That makes zero sense for the Timberwolves to do that for draft picks and Kristaps Porzingis, who has 2 bad knees. But back to the Mavericks, I just think they just don't. Losing Curry, who that reliable 3-point shooter, hurt him. Not having Silas breaking down the offense, and like Luka just being immature is just killing them right now.
The Rockets have struggled. They've lost 4 in a row, but they've actually played better than they should have with Silas. They really have it. They had a ton of turnover on their team. So for a first-year coach to have to go over there, he's a good coach. He really is. Like, he knows what he's doing there with them. Another team that people a lot like, and it is a bummer for the T-Wolves, like you were just talking about with Karl Anthony Towns. He had such a tumultuous offseason with all of his family members and all of the COVID that they had to deal with. And then he gets COVID, and he's only ended up playing 5 games this year. So they haven't even gotten an opportunity to see the team that they wanted to put together that would have needed Towns and D'Lo to be great for them to make the playoffs or something like that. But it does stink that they never even got a shot really to see that. And now by the time he comes back, they're 6-19 with no shot.
No shot at all. And I mean, D'Lo's been hurt too. So that this team hasn't even really had a chance to go at it. But back to one team that you mentioned that has had a great February, the Sacramento Kings. They've taken out the Pelicans, the Celtics, the Nuggets, and the Clippers. Granted, I mean, they happen to catch these teams in good situational spots. Like, they caught the Nuggets in between the Lakers and the Bucks. They caught the Clippers 4th game in 6 nights, and they caught the Celtics on a back-to-back. But usually in these situations, last year they were losing these games. This year they're actually winning these games.
Yep.
And they're competing. And I really think them bringing in Elvin Gentry was huge. He's a great developmental coach. And he's one of those guys, I think he's a better assistant than he is a head coach.
Yep.
For them, I really think they're going to make the playoffs. And for Fox and Hillbrew, that's really important in their development as players, just because playoff basketball is so much different than regular season basketball. And Fox, in my eyes, is an all-star. I know he doesn't want to go to the game, but the level and the improvements he's been playing are insane to me.
I love Fox. I remember a few years ago, and it all worked out fine for the Lakers now, but I remember wanting the Lakers to take Fox instead of Lonzo, just because I sort of like the dog in Fox. You know, he's maybe not – he shoots 35% from three. That's fine. And he's not the greatest free throw shooter in the world, which sometimes bothers me. He's like a little under 70%. He's got to improve there. But he's a dog out there. Like, he's a badass, and he wants to win, and he'll fight you, but he's fast, and he'll fly. He's averaging over 23 points a game this year, and over 6.7 assists and a steal, over a steal. So he's playing great. Buddy Hield's playing great, and you know what you're going to get with Buddy. He's going to shoot well from three at a high clip too. He shoots over 37% on over 10 3-point attempts a game. Harrison Barnes has had a really nice stretch of basketball for them too. He's up at over 16.5 points a game, and he's playing really well too. He's got like little small things, like he's passing the ball better. He's up to 3.5 assists a game. Bagley's actually playing, which is a positive for them. Like, he's played 24 games, so this team is no doubt a team that is going to be, I think, in that mix, at least battling for the play-in spot. Because remember now, this year you got to be top 6 to actually be locked in. As long as it's close enough at the bottom, those 7 and 8 spots will probably be play-in spots. So let's talk about the bottom of the Western Conference: the Pelicans, the Rockets, the Thunder, the T-Wolves. We talked about the T-Wolves and the Thunder. You know, after watching them for a couple nights, I got to say they're not bad. They're not a bad team. They're in good shape moving forward. They have a ton of picks. I like their coach. This team plays pretty well for them. They play hard every night. They've got a couple pieces that I think they're going to want to keep moving forward. Gilgeous-Alexander. Dort is actually a real nice diamond in the rough they found. That's a very good defender. He was making life difficult on LeBron last night. He gives it to you every single night. And I'm sure at some point they're going to probably end up shipping off a Horford and a Ariza and some of the other guys they have on the bench to get even more picks, or maybe some younger players. They're not a team that is going to probably be mixing it up for the playoffs, but man, they're fun and they're in good shape moving forward. And I do think Houston is in better shape now than they probably were with a pissed off, disgruntled Harden. We both seem to like Silas. So those two teams are teams that maybe aren't playing that well. I like where they are moving forward. I guess I've been a little disappointed with the Pelicans, who are at 11 and 13. What do you think about that bottom group of West teams?
I mean, with the Pelicans, I really don't know if they have an offensive identity, if that makes sense. Like, Van Gundy is supposed to come in to shore up the defensive end, and Zion's having a great season. They have Ball, who's playing for a contract. To me, they just have all these guys, but they really just don't have any organization on the offensive end. I know that they've lost, and they started the season off awful, and I know this next, as crazy as it sounds, this next 3 weeks is going to determine if they make the playoffs or not.
Yeah, it's weird. There's you watch them play, and I don't know what it is, but it just feels like there's something missing. When you go through their roster too, like you said, you look through most of their play, who's their team, and they're all playing well. Like, Zion and BI are averaging almost 24 points. Lonzo's actually starting to play pretty good basketball recently. He's shooting a lot better. They're shooting pretty well from three for a lot of players that you don't necessarily think are great shooters. They're sort of overachieving. One guy who's actually just kind of fallen completely out of it and may end up getting traded, they've talked about, is JJ Redick. He may go somewhere to a contender if they don't have a nice couple week stretch and they stay in the mix. But yeah, it seems weird.
They got outscored 40-14 in the third quarter. I think it was yesterday against the Bulls.
Yeah,
40-13
for teams with that have Zion and a couple stars like that. That shouldn't be happening. it just feels like there's a weird mismatch kind of hodgepodge of players here. I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a move or two. I like a lot of their pieces, but it just something's missing and for the Pellies. So yeah, there anything else in the West you want to mention before we jump over to the East?
The Grizz, I mean, they just have so many question marks.
Oh yeah,
just a lot of question marks. I just
Mm-hmm.
really just don't know like what they are. They were great last season, but like you said, we really don't know just because they've missed so many games.
Yeah, it's hard to do analysis on a team that's had 20 games, and in the 20 games that they've played, they've had Ja Morant only playing 12 of them too. So him being healthy is I like Ja a lot. He's very Fox to me. Like, I think he's a great leader of a team, and he makes the guys around him better, and he wants to win, and he's a guy I want on my team. How good does that make them? Because they need a lot more than him. So yeah, we'll sort of like incomplete with them so far, because I don't know if we have enough quite enough to give like real solid analysis on them. Now I'm definitely going to be getting the league pass cranked up a lot more now with no football and not having to do the football rewatches and analysis. So I'll be taking in a lot more Memphis games and just games all around the league in the upcoming weeks. Let's bounce over to the East. And so at the top of the Eastern Conference, we've got Philly and Embiid, who is playing legitimately like an MVP. One thing I was reading, Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer was talking about how just like a small thing, but Embiid he's looking a lot more confident when he like as a ball handler, when he just sort of like facing up and going at guys and pull up shooting himself instead of having to turn around. He can do it off the dribble a little bit more from the three and from like a mid range. So when he's able to improve from sometimes that like those percentages were in the like 20 and low, and now he's like decidedly improved at that. He looks good, and this team is just built so much better with their shooting, their spacing. They make a lot more sense than they have in years past.
Tobias Harris is playing at an all-star level.
He is.
And they're winning game. The big difference between this year and last year is they're winning games on the road, but there's no fans. Like, are they going to be once we all are allowed to go back to games? Is this going to continue? Are they going to be able to win games on the road? Plus, you have the history of Doc Rivers blowing 3-1 leads in the playoffs. Can he actually get a team over a hump? Granted, this team's playing great, Embiid's playing great, but I just have every team in the East has a million questions about them, and the 76ers they have a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
I don't trust. If I were to pick a team to come out of the East, they wouldn't be the one.
Yeah, it'll come down to, again, do you trust Embiid to be healthy at that point again? Any of these teams, and that's what's so difficult about the East, and just like overall, the East is terrible. There are 4 teams above 500 in the East. The Pacers are 13-13, and they're in the 5th spot. The Raptors, who for like a month were terrible. I mean, they were one of the worst teams in the league. They're all the way up to the 6th spot at 12-14. The Hornets are in the 7th spot. The Hawks are in the 8th spot. And then the Heat have been bad. The Knicks started well, but they've struggled a little bit. Bulls, Cavs, Magic, Wizards, and then the Pistons rounded out. So again, like, everybody has major flaws. Everybody has concerns. That's why nobody has been that dominant. And Philly, they've looked, I guess, just a little bit better than everybody else, and that's been because Embiid has been this good. But can you count on Embiid staying healthy through 4, at least 3 in the East, like pretty tough playoff matchups? I don't know.
And is Harris going to be able to continue this level? Like,
yeah.
He's playing the best basketball of his career. Is he going to be able to maintain once it's game 5 and Stevens switch something up? Is he going to make the adjustment? Because he never has in the past. We
see it happen too all the time in the playoffs. Like, they start sagging a little bit off of Simmons. Can he make some of those shots that he needs to, or does he sort of become another, like, not like an offensive liability, but you start he misses a shot or two, and then he doesn't really want to get as aggressive offensively. He becomes more of a facilitator. So then you're sort of, you can sag off of him even more. So yeah, that's the problem with these top two teams in particular, right? The same conversation I think we'll have with the Bucks is they're 16-9 and they made some moves in the offseason, and they're in the 2 spot right now. But until we see Giannis go into the playoffs and win, and it's not Giannis's fault. He's the reason why this team has been so damn good the last couple of years, but in particular, the way that he plays. He is a very aggressive guy who can drive the lane, who's great in transition, who's great in the open court because he's such a freak athlete. When the game slows down and you're able to build sort of that wall, and when you have to play against a team that has a big man like an Embiid down there, but you also have a Simmons that's going to be trying to D you up, or you have a couple of wings like Brown and Tatum that they're going to try to throw at you, can Giannis honestly, it comes down to, can he shoot the ball well enough? Can he make enough free throws where he's at 63% this year? He had that game where he, I think, was 1 for 10 earlier in the year. And he's only shooting just over 27% from the 3-point line. Does he have to make those shots? And do you think he can make enough of them to, take this team to the finals?
The thing with the Bucks this year is they're just not winning close games. I mean, perfect example. When was it? Yesterday against Phoenix. Close game. Giannis had a chance to win it, missed it. That's been them this season.
They've got 9 losses and a plus 9.5 point differential, which, I mean, so the 76ers, who are 18-7, their point differential is plus 4.1, which is better than everybody else in the East. The 76ers are in first. The Bucks are in second with a 9.5 point differential. So they kill teams, but they lose a lot of close games.
Yeah, they just can't win the close ones. And personally, what I feel, the one thing the Miami series showed me is Middleton needs to be the facilitator at the end of the game.
Yep.
They need Middleton. And I said Middleton was a top 20 player last year, and I got a lot of crap for it. And I still believe that right now. He is great. He's a good facilitator, good pick and roll, can hit a jump shot, make a free throw. He needs to be the one at the top of the key, running the offense at the end of the games when they're making their playoff push. Put Giannis down at the block. He just needs to make 3 throws. I'm not even worried about 3-pointers with him. He just needs to be making 3 throws. And with him, he's basically like Carson Wentz. It's all in his head right now.
Right now, Middleton is a 50, 40, 90 guy. He's shooting almost 52% from the field. He's shooting 45% from 3 on over 5.5 attempts a game, and he's shooting almost 92% from the free throw line. That's just rare air when you can be a 50, 40, 90 guy, and Middleton is doing that this year. He has been awesome. I agree with you. Like, when you put the ball in his hands, he makes good decisions. He's up to 6.2 assists on the year also. And what it does is it gives Giannis more of an opportunity for lobs, for little down and around the post back down game, for just using his athleticism down there and not having to use it to try to get by guys that are out on the perimeter when they build that wall. Let him make it a little bit easier, and instead of trying to play like a LeBron, try to play more like a Shaq.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they need to be doing, running the pick and roll with Middleton, hit him on the lob, throw it into the post. But they do this stuff with him driving, trying to kick it. I just think Coach Bud should have been fired. And in the offseason after last year's disappointment, and their whole offensive system needs to change. But until they get a switch in charge, it really won't.
Let's get to that next group. We got Brooklyn, Boston, and the Pacers, who are in the 3, 4, and 5 spot. Brooklyn's 15-12, Boston 13-11, the Pacers 13-13. And with Brooklyn, I think they're going to be a sort of a difficult team to analyze in the regular season, because they're going to have some nights where they just kick the crap out of people when their offense is firing on all cylinders, because with those 3 guys, when they all click one night, or even when 2 of the 3 of them are really clicking, they're going to be awesome. And they're going to be a tough team when, like, in the middle of a season when you're playing different teams all the time. They're a team that can kind of come in and punch you in the mouth because you don't see what they have a lot of nights. When you can game plan for them every night And when you can attack those guys on defense and some of their defense's weaknesses, it's sort of the same exact story with a lot of these top teams in the East. That's what's made the last couple years, like the post Warriors years of the NBA, at least more interesting, because even last year we didn't know what the Lakers and Anthony Davis were going to be like when they got into a playoff series. We've never seen AD playing big games like that, and he was awesome. And then in the same way, we didn't see the Clippers with this version with Kawhi and Paul George, and they kind of curled up in a ball. Are they going to do the same thing this year with a different staff? We don't know, but we don't really know with a lot of these teams, and we give the Lakers the benefit of the doubt because they went there last year. So we all kind of assume, yeah, they'll probably be back there again. But I mean, everybody else has major question marks. How good of defense can this Brooklyn Nets team play for 3 or 4 tough playoff series in a row?
The thing with the Nets is, since the Harden trade, they're bottom 3 in the league in defensive efficiency. And when you watch him play, like I was watching the Rockets because, like an idiot, I bet the Rockets tonight against the Heat tonight. When John Wall was guarding Duncan Robinson in the corner, you have Kyrie Irving guarding the opposing point guard, James Harden guarding the opposing off guard. And Durant, when he's healthy and playing, he can play defense. But Harden and Irving are just way too much liabilities. You have DeAndre Jordan, who can't defend the pick and roll anymore like he used to, isn't as good at rim protector as he used to. This defense
They've got
is
4
awful.
guys. Like Joe Harris is fine. He's a good player. Like he's a good 3 and he'll play some D. Like he's a fine player for them. But that's their 4 guys. And then what else? Like a lot of their depth is gone, either injured or they traded away. They're a team that is definitely going to need to get a couple buyout guys in, and the guys they need to come in are going to have to be like playing heavy minutes for them and big contributors for them. They need another big. They need a big that can at least help them. Like DeAndre can't stay on the court late; he'll get played off because he's like he can't switch. They need a big that can at least sort of switch and sort of like stand in front of a perimeter player if they get switched out on them. Like you said, Durant, I'm okay with Durant's defensive skills, but we haven't really seen Durant have to play defense like turned up since his injury. And then also try to play offense,
And you mentioned a big. The crazy thing is, the big you just described is Jarrett Allen, who they traded away. I mean, like, he would fit it. You know what I mean? It's like, why? I mean, like, he can stretch the floor. He can defend the pick and roll. You know what I mean?
All these guys that with ball that are ball handlers,
just blows my mind.
Like, play pick and roll with them and catch lobs from them. Like with any of those 3 guys. And
perfect. And I mean, I can't wait. I have this vision in my head. This is the vision in my head. First round of the playoffs, whoever they're playing, have it be Toronto, Charlotte, Atlanta, Knicks, whoever. KD clapping, Irving rolling his eyes because he's mentally checked out, and Harden already in the strip club. Like, that's my vision, and it's going to be a train wreck, and I can't wait. But really quick, like, in terms of Irving, like, I have never seen a player get a pass more than Irving. He had one good moment, and don't get me wrong, what he did, buying the house for George Floyd, great and everything. But I'm talking strictly on the basketball court. He hit that 3 to win it for the Cavs. After that, what has he done? Like, literally, what has he done?
He literally got rid of, screwed the whole Cavs over because he didn't want to play with LeBron anymore, which, okay. Then he went to Boston, didn't get his way there. He could have literally screwed up the careers of both of Tatum and Brown. Look how great they were now without him. They've been
better
awesome.
Without him. Brad
so
Stevens
good.
Looked like a 60-year-old man coaching him. Now he looks like he's in his 40s. He goes to the Nets. He runs Atkins out of town. Like, this guy, and then at the beginning of the year, he just didn't want to play. Really?
He says, I'm not playing for a while. Like, where else do you get to do that when you're getting $40 million a year?
Like, it just blows my mind. Like, he hit a shot, great, but everyone gives him a pass from that shot. That moment's gone. Like, honestly, what the Nuts need to do, they need to trade his ass, and they need to get those guys that can guard somebody, and they can play Harden, like, against the Duncan Robinson type, where Harden doesn't have to exert so much energy on defense. And, like, that's what the Nets need to do.
I don't like their chances. They're going to be a team I'm definitely going to be. Like, they're fun in the regular season because, like I said, they're like how the Rockets in the regular season sort of were, where they can just barrage you with their offense when those three guys are clicking. But it's so different when you're playing one team over and over again. They can game plan for you. We've seen this team not be. They just can't stop guys.
But like, there's been teams that have won titles that haven't been great defensive teams, but when push came to shove and it was like under 3 minutes and they needed that defensive stop, they would bunker down and get this defensive stop. These guys just let it go through the hoop and then run down the next end. They can't stop anything.
Boston, Pacers, Toronto, next couple we're talking about. Boston, I hate the Celtics as a Laker fan, and I don't love it when they succeed. But Tatum was a guy who I remember after his rookie year, everybody was so high on him that I was like, oh God, I'm so sick of hearing about Tatum. And then he struggled really bad that year. We were just talking about with Kyrie, and then he's bounced back and he's been awesome. And Jaylen Brown has taken the next step this year. The problem with Boston is, one of the problems that we had with a couple of these teams when we talked about them, when we were doing the season preview, they're just not deep enough. They don't really have they're not quite deep enough. They don't have enough off the bench. So anytime they've had one of these issues where somebody was missing because of COVID or they miss a player or two, Kemba's been disappointing. They are just like missing a little. I like their top two. I like their coach. I think they'll be a good perennial team for years to come. But again, like, do I trust them being able to win the 3 tough series in the East?
I was bored. I couldn't sleep. What was it? Like 2 weeks ago, and I watched the fourth quarter of the All-Star game with the new rules. And a thing that really stood out to me is those guys were all trying because they all wanted to win it with how the rules were differently. Kemba really struggled to get anything going.
Yeah.
And that was like a playoff basketball-esque. And if he's not able to do that, their offense is basically Kemba drives, kicks it to Tatum and Brown. I really feel Tatum, for them to make a run, needs to play more in the post, Brown too, but they're always out on the wings with Kemba trying to drive, and now he's hurt. Until there's a change in offensive philosophy with them, I really think they're just going to be what they are, or if they are able to get a different one.
And Pacers, Toronto, we talked about the Raptors, how terrible they were to start. They've been playing better basketball, and they'll probably end up finishing here in this top 5 range, probably like 4 through 6 range or so. But they were. Van Vliet, Siakam were terrible, like early. They've turned it around. Van Vliet's been playing really, really well. They miss their bigs a little bit. They miss Gasol. They miss Ibaka. Just having those guys and giving them more versatility and more options. And this is sort of like, isn't this like always where the Pacers are, right? Like right around the 500 range, like in that sort of second half of the Eastern Conference playoff picture.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, the Pacers are what they are. They just that small market team. They have Brogdon. Oh my God, I'm Sabonis. And I was really hoping LeVert would have been there, because I really feel if LeVert would have been healthy, that would have been enough for them to get up to that 3 line. But right now, I mean, they're going to win one series, and that's the ceiling for them.
Yeah.
Back to Siakam, I gotta wonder if something was going on, because ever since, if you look at his game log since the 31st, 30 points, 12 points, 30, 15, 32, 26, 23. So he's definitely starting to play better. And this team is the only team. They're in a bubble. They're all living in hotel rooms. That's
what's been frustrating. They're in Tampa. Yeah, and they just announced that they're going to actually have to finish their season in Tampa. So I think we can, they're a team that is dealing with this, something that nobody else is dealing with. They're on the road the entire year away from their home, where they've created a home. They get zero real home court advantage because the place they're playing at is a place that they've only played at, for an extra few weeks more than anybody else.
Oh yeah. It's just weird. And some of them have their families there. Some of them don't. And not seeing your family is hard. Kind of like, imagine you being able, not being with your your wife and
Oh my
kid.
gosh, it'd
You
be
know that
it'd be insane. I can't, and that's what a lot of these guys are dealing with. So it's like you said, it's been difficult, and it was not really a shock to see them, struggle a little bit out of the gate because they're probably just kind of finding their footing and maybe getting comfortable. Maybe now they're able to sort of
but I think
realize, okay,
they got a little bit more of an offensive rhythm. Like they
mhm.
were at the
They were
beginning of the year,
all
jacking
shooting poorly, like
threes.
at the same time.
Yeah, they just seem to get a little bit more rhythm. Van Vliet, Siakam, they kind of find their range. And like at the beginning of the year, I was just watching them. They just jacking up threes for the first quarter, second quarter, everything to the rim, and then it was just no rhythm, no offensive flow. But the last couple of games I watched, there's been more fluidity in the offense and a lot more ball movement.
Next here in the East, the 7, 8, and 9 spots right now: Charlotte Hornets, Atlanta Hawks, and Miami Heat. The Heat have struggled. They've had some injuries. They've been banged up. It was a quick turnaround for the Heat coming out of the NBA Finals, and then the season starting a lot quicker than people were assuming it would. So they probably have some, they probably have some excuses you can build into them. The Hawks have had a lot of new personnel. They're probably not quite as good as we think. They defensively are a team again that, can they get the stops when they need? And then you got the Charlotte Hornets who have been playing pretty well. And you know what? LaMelo Ball has looked pretty damn good. He's been fun to watch. He's going to have some nights where he doesn't shoot all that well, but he's a big enough guard to where he's never going to be a sieve defensively. And he's a guy who makes some good things happen with the ball in his hands.
For as crazy as the old man is, and that old man is beyond
He's
crazy.
batshit. He is
I
batshit.
mean,
He did a great job with his kids, man.
He's a nightmare. LaMelo plays basketball the right way. He does the right things with
And
the
so
ball.
does Lonzo. And so does
oh,
Lonzo,
yeah.
too.
Oh,
what you're saying, like they play it in a very unselfish way for guys that, like LaMelo can shoot the ball a lot, sure, but they are very pass first, rebound the ball. Like they will try hard on the defensive end. They do, you're right. They're not guys that come in and think they're not me first basketball players.
Yeah, for sure. They play it the right way. There's someone, if I was starting a team, I would want, and it hurts me to say this, I would want them on my team. Just with the way they play.
Yeah.
With LaMelo, on the defensive end, he just wasn't really trying. Like he's actually trying now. Mm-hmm. They got Hayward, they got Bridges, they got Graham, they got Rozier. They're a fun little team to watch.
They are.
They're a fun little team. And I mean, like, if that's the team that gets up to the 6th spot, or if Brooklyn goes up to the 2 and they're at the 7, I could see them with how they play giving the Nets some trouble. That would be interesting because Hayward's been there before and he can provide that veteran leadership about what to do in the playoffs. In terms of the Hawks, why they didn't extend John Collins will always be a mystery to me. I really think he's a great player and definitely a piece if I'm building a team I want. And then a story came out about him and Young getting into it in some film session, saying that Young needs to pass the ball more. I'm not really a Trae Young guy. I mean, there's that whole thing on Oklahoma. Like they started out great when he was there and the team kind of checked out. I think that's just going to be a story with his NBA career. He's completely different than the Ball brothers. He's a shoot first, me type of guy. And I mean, that just doesn't fly in the NBA.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. There's something, he's sort of more of like a Westbrook-y, but he's not like big enough or like sort of badass enough for a lot of people to want to follow him. He just kind of reminds me of a guy that's going to be like big stats on a mediocre to bad team. And we'll see. He can develop and change, but yeah.
Like last night, and there's that game in the Mavericks, the last sequence, where he went to set that pick, great pick, John Collins wide open, didn't give it to him. And Young falls down, flops, tried to get the call, and then he gets in the official's face, and he's as tall as the official yelling at him. I'm like, really? Like, you're small and you're yelling at the official at a foul that wasn't even a foul? Like, if you're trying to look like a hard ass, this is not doing it for you at all. And plus, with the limitations Young has with rebounding and defense, this team needs to be built a precise way for the Hawks to compete. And they're not getting anything from Gallinari and from Hunter's hurt. I mean, they just
Bogdanovich only played 9 games, so those guys need to be the other guys scoring 15 to 20 points a game to help this team out. And yeah, it's a weird too. Like you said, they've got like Collins and Capella, and then they drafted Okongwu. And it's like you sort of got 3 guys who are kind of similar in what they can do for you. And obviously Okongwu's been hurt. He just recently played, and he's a rookie. He'll probably need a year or two. But you got Capella and Collins who they played together. But I don't know. Like I don't know if that maximizes this their strengths. Like you said, this team doesn't feel like they're built maybe the right way. If they're gonna go all in with Trey, they need to make a couple changes here because they're not built the right way, I think, to just say, hey, Trey's going to be our guy. We're going to go all in here.
Oh, for sure. They totally need defensive guys. I mean, they got the floor structure in Bogdanovich, but they got just way too many bigs, way too many people clogging the middle.
Miami's on the turnaround. You called this, too. It's not really surprising to see them struggle early, and they've been banged up.
Oh, and I'm telling everyone right now, they started a 14-day road trip, West Coast style. This is their season. If they don't win 7 games, they're not making the playoffs.
Below them, we got the Knicks, the Bulls, and the Cavs. The Cavs have a couple of these teams were fun to start the year. The Knicks were playing really well, and they've probably still overachieved from what people would assume with Thibodeau there. They play really hard. Julius Randle's been playing like an all-star, but they're 3-7 in their last 10, so they're down to 11-15 overall. The Bulls, they're just a team where I can't really put my finger on them. I like a couple of their pieces, but now Markkanen's going to be out for a while. Can Ken Levine be your number one? And then we got the Cavs, who they had the Sexland backcourt going good for a while. I think they beat the Brooklyn Nets back-to-back nights, and they're 10-16 now. They've lost 5 in a row. They were playing really good ball, but they've struggled as of late. So this next tier of teams, Knicks, Bulls, Cavs, any thoughts on them?
Well, I mean, the Knicks, obviously, this blew my mind. They have not played a meaningful basketball game in the spring in the Garden since 2013. So, obviously, they made the big trade for Derrick Rose. That veteran guy can get him 25 on any given night, comfortable coming off the bench.
Tibbs loves him.
And guys in the league love him, too. And
they do.
This is a young team, and they probably looked up when he was having his heyday in Chicago years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, to me, that is a perfect addition. And when I was in college, I spent 2 summers in New York, and I have a lot of friends out there. And their main thing is they're worried that them bringing in Rose is going to be cutting into Emmanuel Quickley's minutes. And I get it. You know, they finally hit on a draft pick, drafting Emmanuel Quickley, but Knicks fans need to calm down. Quickley isn't Kenny Anderson or anything. You know what I mean? Like, don't elevate somebody. The number one thing right now for the Knicks, because it is a big market team, if the Knicks can show people, free agents, that they can get in the playoffs and they can attract like whoever the next big free
they're not
agent
locked
class
down
is.
for a while.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, their contracts are in good shape.
They need to show that they have the young talent. They developed them. Look, we're at the bottom of the playoffs. You come here, you're going to elevate us. Because that's why none of these free agents, LeBron when his contract was up back in the day, KD and Irving this past offseason, that's why no one wanted to go there, because they've been a doormat and it's not a relevant franchise. That's why getting in the playoffs is so important for this team this year.
And then Bulls and Cavs. Cavs sort of have had a similar template to the Knicks. Like they've got some young pieces now. They do have Allen over there, along with the backcourt that I think has taken a step forward this year, is better than a lot of people were expecting them to be. On paper, this looked like one of the worst teams in the league, and they still might end up down there. But they've got some things I think to be excited about moving forward.
I mean, the backcourt and Jarrett Allen are great. They just don't have a wing. They need that young wing. And I mean, you get that, then it's entertaining there. But they got pieces and they're going in the right direction.
And we got the bottom three here with the Magic, the Wizards, and your Detroit Pistons. Not too surprising to see the Magic regress a little bit because it was going to be tough for them with a big piece missing throughout the year with a big injury early on. So they were going to already be a little undermanned. And the Pistons, we didn't expect to be that great. The Wizards, though, Westbrook has just been atrocious. He has been so bad. The game against Brooklyn, he was really good. He wanted to play awesome that game. But he has been just terrible. And it felt like when they made the trade, okay, if you have Westbrook playing every night with Beal, those two guys and just playing hard every night, how Westbrook plays, should be able to get you in toward the bottom of the playoffs with, guys that you could fill in around them. But this is like by far the worst version of Westbrook that we have ever seen. The guy is shooting just terrible all over. He's shooting 41% from the field, and he's only shooting 67% from the free throw line. A guy who used to get to the line all the time, only with 5.4 free throw attempts a game. He's been banged up. This has probably been one of the bigger surprises to me. I didn't think they were going to be the best team in the East, but I thought they would be around a 500 team that would be in the playoff picture.
It's bad. I was with you. I thought they'd be in the playoffs, but Westbrook is definitely taking that step backwards, and he just I have no rhyme or reason why, but he looks like he's aged like 8 years in this last offseason.
And the way he plays, he was always one of those players that you worried about, kind of like Wall, too, is that they're so fast, they play so hard, which is why, as a fan, you love Westbrook. Like, hey, you know what? Say what you want about Westbrook. As a NBA fan, I loved watching the guy play because he played hard all the time. He wanted to win. He may be an ass sometimes and might not do it the right way all the time, but you can't ever question his effort when he's out on the court. He wants to win. He wants to punch you in the face. He just looks like a complete shell of himself. And I wonder, with a guy like that and the way he plays basketball, he's never been a great three-point shooter. He doesn't seem like one that's going to age very gracefully.
Not at all. Father Time is undefeated. And the same thing happened with my Pistons. Like, Isaiah Thomas, he got that Achilles tear, and he just never was the same. So, I don't want him to get hurt, but, because he was injured. He didn't play in the bubble last year, if I remember correctly. Everything's just wearing out on him.
You know what? Yeah, he played. He wasn't playing, and then when he came back, he had COVID. And then when he came back, he was playing. He had remember he had that really great stretch in like January last year when the Rockets decided to just go completely small, and he was like playing center for them, and he was dominating the paint and playing great. And then he got hurt. And when the seasons broke up and he got COVID and he came back and he played in a couple of games against the Lakers, and he was so bad in a couple of those games in that series. Like, he was losing games for them. The Lakers were able to just sag back off of him so often. So this is just not the version that we were thinking and we're kind of hoping of Westbrook that we see this year. And then your team, your Pistons, you weren't expecting them to be great or anything this year, but are they gonna? What are they gonna end up doing with? Like Grant is actually played really well. What does this team do with Blake Griffin? Like, what do they end up doing with him?
You obviously need to trade him for what you can, but obviously he's in the same category as Westbrook, where he's just completely fallen off and he's a shell of what he used to be. Honestly, the best thing they could do is Grant is playing at such a high level right now. You can get a first-round draft pick back for Grant if you really wanted to move him.
Yeah.
He came to hit Detroit and Denver, offered the same year, same everything, same money, but he wanted to go to Detroit because he wanted to be the quote-unquote man, and he's showing he can. Imagine Grant because he was rumored to go to the Lakers, imagine Grant if he would have gone to the Lakers right now. That, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
him playing at that level with LeBron and AD. You guys are winning the title. Why even play the season, dude?
He's been excellent. He really has. He it was like put your money where your mouth is, and it wasn't even money. Like you said, it was, I just want to show what I can do, and I can be more of than people think of me as, just this like 3-and-D guy. And he has been very, very good this year, and he's up over 24 points a game and over 5.5 rebounds, 3 assists a game, 2 over a block. He's a nice piece. What about any of the young guys on the team that you like?
I mean, my boy Killian Haynes, he's hurt. He's got some hip thing going on, and that's definitely been a buzzkill because I was really high on him. That was the guy I wanted to get. I think Bay is going to be a great floor stretcher for them. Stewart, the kid from Washington, high energy guy, kind of like a poor man's Ben Wallace, if you will. But I mean, I like those pieces, and it's nice to see Josh Jackson, the kid from Kansas, who got drafted by the Suns and then traded to the Grizzlies.
He was lighting up the Lakers the other night. Oh my
gosh.
Come
in and he's played great. And the one thing about Casey is he's really a good developmental guy. So they definitely got Bay. They got Stewart, like I said. They just traded. They got Smith back in the Rose trade. And Smith's small. He's never going to be a starting point guard in the league just because he can't see over the defense. He has to look around him. But if they can develop Smith into a guy that can come off the bench, get 12, 15 points a game, be a little Vinny Microwave Johnson like he was back in the day. And then there's some dudes at the top of this draft class. Jalen Green, Cunningham from Oklahoma State. You get one of those, then you throw in with the Stewart, Bay, Killian Hayes. Then you got something in Detroit. So, I mean, I'm excited for the future. And, I mean, I take it with a grain of salt. We beat the Lakers, played them tough. Was it 2 nights ago or 4 nights ago? And
4 nights ago, yeah.
Yeah, and then we beat in Brooklyn. But I think we lost to – I don't know if we beat the Pacers tonight or not. No, we lost to the Pacers by 16. So, I mean, it's just weird with them because they play the good teams tough. And then
you guys played the Celtics really tough this year.
I mean, my buddy texted me. He goes like, "We are the best, worst team ever."
Yeah.
And it just is what it is with that. But I like their long-term goal, and I mean, like I said, hopefully they win the lotto and we get Cunningham or Green.
Erik, Etoff 2-1 Sports, hanging out with us here on That's What G Said for an hour of NBA discussion, talking about what's been happening in the first, already about third of the season so far. Erik, thank you so much, buddy. We're going to start doing this weekly here instead of football to talk. We'll be talking NBA. We'll be firing up the League Pass a little more often, playing some of that daily fantasy NBA, wagering on some games. Anything else that we have to discuss?
Speaking about, I got some situational spots.
Cool.
For wagering. Now, of course, this is if the number matches the situation. We did mention how the Jazz are playing the Bucks. The next night they're playing the Heat. If they beat the Bucks and then they have the Heat on the back-to-back with the Philly game in between them, if I can get the Heat at +6 or more, I'll be looking at that. And then that's February 13th. February 15th, that is Monday. Clippers playing the Heat. Clippers are on the back-to-back. 3 games and 4 nights with the Jazz on deck. That'd be another situation to play the Heat. And like I said earlier, this 2-week stretch, 14 days, is going to sum up the Heat season on this West Coast strip. So they're going to be really locked in. The last one is the 16th, Suns at Nets. This is the next 3rd game in 4 nights, 2nd in the back-to-back. And then they have that stretch with the Lakers and Clippers on deck. And the Suns have been playing some good ball. So if you can get the Suns at pick 'em or -2 to a pick 'em to plus points, I definitely think that's a play.
And what's nice about the Heat, who you mentioned a few of those games, they're coming off of a good win earlier on Thursday night, right before we recorded this. They were able to beat the Rockets and get the roadie started right, and they're on a nice little streak right now. And Butler played really well. He had 27 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. So it'd be nice to see him get hot for this road trip and kind of carry them through it, because he's the type of guy who you want in those big situations. And they've got some big ones coming up with the Clippers and with the Jazz. So, Erik, awesome stuff, buddy. Thank you always for coming so prepared, and we look forward to talking with you each week, kind of recapping what's been going on, and just like you did, giving us a couple games to look forward to. Thanks so much, man.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, let's give us your plugs one more time. I mentioned it throughout, but where can we follow along for your website and follow you on Twitter and on Instagram?
I'm on Twitter at etoff21sports. on Instagram at etalk21sports_, and my website etalk21sports. I noticed a trend on for teams playing the Super Bowl. Wrote a little blog post earlier in the week with a team that fits this trend, and that I actually locked in a future bet on them. And I'll be ranking my top 25 free agents and my draft player position prospects soon.
Great stuff, buddy. Thank you so much. You have a nice weekend, and I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Sounds good, man. Me too.
That is Erik. You heard multi-talented. We've talked to Erik about so many different sports, and now our focus over the next couple months will be about the NBA. So make sure to give him a follow there on social media. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with plenty more here on That's What G Said. Horse racing fans, many of us have been using the DRF, the daily racing form, for years, studying the races, keeping up to date on news with all the articles. I remember looking for a copy at the local liquor store or picking one up at the local racetrack wherever I was going. Now it's even easier and cheaper than ever to use DRF with DRF.com and the newly optimized DRF Mobile. You can get all the tracks that you want to bet and handicap. Past performances that are mobile optimized for on-the-go handicapping on your phone. So you go to DRF.com from your mobile device, no additional cost. Tap the calendar icon on the top left. It opens all of the options for past performances and for the tools that are available. One click to bet now and DRF bets. Get real-time odds and scratches on race day. You can tap on any horse, and you get those same DRF past performances that you're familiar with a larger font for your mobile display. One click to Formulator for charts, for replays if you get the Formulator version. And even on the classic past performances, you get the home screen with horses, with odds, with buyers. You get a lifetime buyer speed figure graph. You can rotate your phone for the best view. And any horse that you click on, you'll see the running lines. You can easily move from horse to horse. The same data as those traditional classic DRF past performances. You get an interactive format, which is very similar to the DRF Classic version that you're used to on the desktop. Every card includes live data updated instantly with those scratches, and so you get the accessibility from desktop to phone, cross-device functionality. You can take your notes and save them from one device to the next, and then access your account on any of your devices. On-the-go handicapping and wagering, multiple formats to view. You got the overview page with recent speed figures, current day's odds, easy access to expert selections and analysis. You got the buyer speed figure graph with lifetime buyer speed figures and chart notes for every horse. And you got those traditional DRF past performances that are just newly optimized for your mobile phones. They are constantly upgrading, improving, and making everything easier for you to get your handicapping done at DRF.com. Big thanks to Erik for helping us out with the NBA this time. We'll be talking lots of NBA each and every week here on That's What G Said podcast, but we're always talking about Stable Duel, and this weekend there's a big contest on Friday. So this is the important one, folks, because it is the Duel for Daytona. On Friday, there will be a Duel for Daytona Horse Player Challenge, $40 buy-in at Gulfstream Park. They have a guaranteed prize pool of $2,000. So you're going to get your normal payouts, even if you're not a fan of NASCAR or the Daytona 500, you don't know anything about it, like me, I don't know much about it, but you'll still get paid out like normal. You still build your normal Stable Duel lineup for Friday for Gulfstream Park. And then, if you finish in the top 40, you will be assigned one of the drivers in the Daytona 500. So Stable Duel will end up posting a list. If you're fourth, you're going to be assigned the driver that's in the number 4 spot. So it'll be very easy for you to follow along, and it'll give you something extra to watch on Sunday with the Daytona 500. If your driver ends up winning, you're going to get a $100 bonus credit into your Stable Duel account, plus a $50 NASCAR gift card to NASCAR Shop, where you can get whatever you want. So, even if you're not a NASCAR fan, you play this contest. It's a normal contest with the normal winning payouts and a $100 bonus if your driver wins. Plus, our friend Brian Howard, Beho, you've heard him on here a few different times. He works for Stable Duel over there, doing a lot of marketing stuff for them. If there are 125 entries in the contest on Friday, they are going to shave Brian's head into a mullet. So even if you were thinking about playing, if you weren't sure, put your $40 up for a great cause, because not only will you have the opportunity to win, maybe you get a little bonus and you can win in the Daytona 500 also, but if we just get to 125 stables, they're going to shave his head into a mullet. This will be great on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook pictures forever. Brian Howard, he's a great sport. So let's make sure we get our entries in for the Duel for Daytona on Friday. I'm going to be having a couple entries in for that Friday Gulfstream Park contest, the Duel for Daytona over there. And all weekend long, like always, tons of different ways for you to get involved in stable duel contest. And what they're doing now is they're just giving you option after option after option. No more do you just have one or two different racetracks to pick from. Let's go through the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday, they've got the Duel for Daytona at Gulfstream Park, $40 buy-in. You got a $10 booster at Gulfstream. That's only $5 to get in. You got a Tampa Bay Downs $10 buy-in. You got a $25 at Tampa buy-in. You got Laurel with the free ride. It's dollar night at Sam Houston. I'm going to go through the full card right now. So there's zero excuses for you to not get at least in a Laurel free ride, a Sam Houston dollar night. Think about it. For $41, you could play in 3 different contests. One at Gulfstream, one at Laurel, one at Sam Houston. I'll help you out with the Sam Houston one right here. Saturday, Gulfstream Park, triple up for $100. There's a Gulfstream Park $25 buy-in. There's a $10 buy-in. At Tampa, there's a $10 buy-in. There's a $2 buy-in 10 times booster. There's a Laurel 25 buy-in. There's a Golden Gate $50 buy-in. There's a Santa Anita 10 times booster for $25. They've also got a smaller game, a $5 buy-in if you want to play Santa Anita on Saturday. And then on Sunday at Gulfstream, you can play for $25. You can play for $100. There's also $5 for the smaller players. At Tampa, there's a $10 game. And then at Santa Anita, $25 and $50 options for you. So they are really giving you options from free, $1, $5, all the way up to $100 at multiple tracks all throughout the weekend. Stable Duel. Get those entries in and play, race, win. If you ever have any questions about Stable Duel and you need any help building your lineups, just let me know. I'd love to help you out. You'll always see my stable in there. That's what G said stable, doing our best, trying to make that money there at Stable Duel. So big weekend again, and we'll be playing along on Friday with that Gulfstream Park contest. Let's get you to some racing for Friday. Now, keep in mind, all weekend long, when you're doing your handicapping, when you're putting in your wagers, there is bad weather everywhere. Oaklawn Park has already canceled all of their racing over the weekend, and they were actually supposed to race on Monday and have the Southwest Stakes then. They're going to reschedule that for next week. Fairgrounds canceled racing on Thursday because it was pouring. Sam Houston started to race on Thursday, and then they canceled the last part of their card because it was pouring and lightning and there was a lot going on. So all around the country, when you're doing your handicapping, make sure to take a note of if it's an off racetrack, if these races are on and off the grass, sloppy, whatever it is, make sure to take note of that in your handicapping. Let's get over to Sam Houston. Let's start talking a little bit about Friday. So I'll mention races on the grass for now, but again, keep in mind that a lot of these races will be coming off the turf. So second race, Sam Houston, $25,000 claimers, non-winners of 2, mile and a 16th on the turf course there. So Unforeseen had a brutal trip last time out, the number 5. She had absolutely nowhere to go. She got beat to a spot early on. She was in tight inside. She was traveling well, but she had no room. She waited. She tried to angle inside, but she just couldn't. It was an excellent effort, sneaky good. And the last 2 races, she's been behind next out winners and coming out of some very sharp races. I'm going to have her picked on top. I'll probably single her to start an early pick 4 if this race is on the grass again. Underneath, I'd have the 4, Clay's Moonstone, the 3, I Just Want to Have Fun, and then what do you do with the 1, Swanage? Now, if this race for some reason does come off of the grass, keep in mind that Clay's Moonstone was a horse who we played recently, we liked a couple weeks back, finished second, and would be very live coming right back as a horse who's already been proven. She's been proven on the wet track also. So on the turf, single the 5, over 4-3-1 if you want to go a little deeper. And if it comes off, I think you'd have to upgrade the 4 Clay's Moonstone. Let's move along to race number 3, maiden 7,500, 6 furlongs, the distance here. I'm going to go to the 6 horse, Beggar Thy Star. First time gelding who has shown some speed is now going to be turning back. I think they will be a lot fitter today. Leslie aboard, so still will get you a good aggressive ride in here. Turning back to 6, you'll probably get just a little bit more off the pace. I like the 3 outside horses in here because the blinkers coming on, the 3 Graphite, not sure what to do with this one dropping in class. Just really didn't show much at all in those races at Canterbury. And then the 8 Mandolin Jim, who's going to be dropping in class, has shown a little bit of speed and has also shown the ability to pass some horses. So I think he's got a major shot in here. 50 Shades O Purple, dropping in from the maiden specials, putting 2 starts together for the first time, trying dirt for the first time, cutting back to a sprint, sort of kind of starting over here. So 6, 7, 8 for me. I have them stacked 6, 8, 7 in race number 3 at Sam Houston. We move along to the 4th race. First level allowance for Texas breds. These are Colts and Geldings. Let's see. We got 4-year-olds and up, which have never won a race other than the maiden claiming starter. 6 furlongs, the distance. I thought the 1A Bowzun, it's a horse who I've been kind of watching the last couple times. He feels like the most likely winner of this race. I'm just a little concerned because he doesn't have a ton of speed, and sometimes at the sprint level, he can get outrun a bit, which is what happened to him last time out. But I think this is a great spot for Bowzun, who I have on top in here. The 3 True Saint, he was right up on the lead battling last time out. I think it looks a little bit better than what the race might look like when you just look at the running line. And honestly, that's my concern with Bowzun, and why I may not necessarily want to just single him is I don't know if there's going to be enough speed to set it up for him. Who's really quick sprint-wise in here? I mean, I think the 3 is probably one of the quicker horses. I don't really think Nova Notion has some speed, not really a speed demon. Cat of Fox isn't really that fast. Best Little Man has shown sort of tactical sprint speed when they need. Texas Warrior isn't really that quick. I mean, he's coming out of tons better races, no doubt about that. Some of the open races recently behind Young Phillip and Fred's Twirlin' Candy. But when we saw Texas Warrior in a sprint against Texas bred in a similar spot, he was 20, 30 to 1, and he was overmatched by Best Little Man. So, I mean, does the presence of Stuart Elliott say that much for him? I have 1 and 3 as sort of the top tier. I do think the 6, I loved him last time out, Cato Fox, and he got caught behind Lone Speed, and he was just really disappointing. So I'll have him 1, 3, 6, 4, 1, 3, like 4 and 6 kind of together, 1 and 3, 1A and 3 as sort of the top tier to use in race number 4 on Friday. Let's move to the 5th race on Friday. We have a mile on the turf course, maiden 25 claimers in here. So the 6 Heartbreak Road, who stretches out and tries the grass. Both siblings won on the turf. I think that's a major positive. And honestly, on the drop-in class, even if if she wasn't on the grass, I would still think she would be a major player in here stretching out. The 8 DM Now does have a turf-winning sib. DM Now will also be stretching out. He makes a ton of sense in here, whether he's on the grass or not. Same thing I think can be said for the 3, Twilight Curfew. So if this race comes off the grass, it really won't change my analysis for the top 3 all that much. I think all of them have a big shot on either surface. Twilight Curfew's dam didn't win on the grass, but they do. She does have 3 winning turf siblings. And on January the 8th, the winner that day, Hooked on a Kiss, came back to finish 3rd next out against optional 50s. The runner-up Prospera came back and was a little disappointing last week, but again, that was open maiden special weights. Fold'em was coming in from Churchill Downs, and the 4th place finisher won next out. That 4th place finisher was Free Flying Fast, who ended up beating DM Now. If it's on the grass, you probably will throw the 9 in. Mish Pocha, who's got some of the better turf races, but those are sprints. So, I don't know how are they going to play out? Is this course going to take a lot of money if it comes off the grass? I definitely don't need her in here. So I have 6, 8, 3 as my top tier. And again, 6, 8, and 3 are probably fine on either surface. The 1, I would also give a look to, if this came off of the grass, trying to show a little speed stretching out from the inside. So 6-8-3 in order with the 1 question marks, and not really sure what to do with the 9. We'll see surface-wise, but I don't need the 9 there at a short price. We get to race number 6 at Sam Houston, a $7,500 claimer, 7 furlongs. Because of the 9 race card there, this will actually start your late pick 4. I like the 2 Gambler. Gambler ran into some traffic going into the turn in his last start. He got shuffled out of a spot. He ended up losing 2 lengths. He was chasing slow fractions. He moved inside, but he moved up into traffic. It was much better than it looks on paper. He's going to take another drop from the 10 down to the $7,500 claimers. I think this is a great spot. 2 back, he was behind Sky Ride, who we saw go on to win Stakes Company against Stakes Company a few weekends ago. I love the 2 in this spot quite a bit. Gambler. Other horses that I will be using along with Gambler, the 6, Taruka, on the big drop down in class. Last year at Sam Houston, Taruka had a couple very nice races, seems to like this racetrack, knows how to win, and is dropping down in class from facing optional 20s last time out. Was on the grass behind a sharp one, 2 back in Touching Rainbows. The 8 is the other horse I'll be sort of using in that top tier. Just the sharp Pomeroy Hayes, who is looking for his, 5th consecutive victory right now. He beat a horse recently named Insurrection, who we're going to talk about on the Saturday analysis with Sam Sherman. That's Sam's horse. Insurrection just won on Wednesday at Sam Houston. So 2, 6, 8. Below them, if you wanted to go a little bit deeper, it would be Onomatopoeia, the 4, who just didn't really fire last time out, to be honest, and he was so consistent coming in with a string of really good races that maybe you can just make a little bit of an excuse for him, as the race has already come back live, producing a next out winner. So Onomatopoeia, you wanted to go a little deeper. And then what do you do with the 7, Psyched Up, who comes off of that big 5 length victory? He's actually looking for his 3rd in a row. He's stepping up from those Oklahoma breds, though, to face Open Company here. I have him 2, 6, 8. With 4, 7 as my next tier if you want to go a little bit deeper. Let's get into race number 7. Start of your late pick 3 here. Maybe my best bet on the day. I absolutely love the 3, Schemer. Schemer, who has not really run a bad race. Even the debut, when having legitimate trouble and finishing 4th at Fairgrounds, was not bad. Since then, you've got a race going, 2 races going long on the turf, and then 1 race going 6.5 on the main. Those 3 races are all really good. And now Schemer, who's coming off of that mile race on the grass where he got caught in traffic. He had nowhere to go at the top of the lane. He had to shift around and alter course. He was really, really live and just could not really find a way through. And by the time he did, he's a little bit flat. I thought it was a much better effort than at first glance. He's got more tactical speed than that. They were just going pretty quick there, and now he's going to get back to dirt where he ran well 2 starts back. So it's going to be 3rd start off the long layoff for him, back to the dirt, cutting back, gives you a little more punch late. And the way this race will shape up on paper, the number 8 American Code, you'd imagine he's going to go to the lead. He got beat. He looked like he put Extreme Force away, and then he got a little tired late, going 6.5 off the bench. And Fantastic is pretty quick. You'd imagine that those 2 will probably be hooking it up early on, and Schemer could be tucked in so nicely behind them, or maybe a little farther back, but getting the type of trip that he needs to win. Give me Schemer as a late exotic single, a horse that I'll bet to win if we can get anything around 3-1. And if I had to use others in here, if you don't want a single Schemer, I would probably give American Code another opportunity. If I had to, I'd prefer American Code maybe over Fantastic, and then Desario. So I would have him 3, 8, 1 here. But the number 3, Schemer, best bet on the Friday card, and a no-doubt single for me in the late exotics. We get to Sam Houston's 8th race for Friday, February the 12th. 5 furlongs on the turf course in here. The number 4, Liner Rink, is the one to beat, in my opinion, and I think you have to use her. But I'm going to use the 3, Zabet, with Elliott jumping aboard, mainly because, look at a lot of Liner Rink's races. Who's right behind Zabet? Who's actually outfinished Liner Rink before? Zabet, who is pretty honest and just doesn't necessarily know the difference between winning and finishing 2nd or 3rd or 4th. Zabet, she's consistent. I think you want to throw the 3 in, and maybe Elliott jumping aboard can help make a little bit of a difference in here. So let's use the 3, Zebet. Let's use the 4, Liner Rink. Let's use the 5, Thelma and Annie. Because for a 6 furlong or 5 furlong turf sprint like this, there is not that much speed. So I'm using 3, 4, 5. I did think the 6, Miss Invasive, if she ends up choosing this spot, could be very, very interesting from just a pace standpoint. So keep an eye on her. If she is running in here, do include the 6, Miss Invasive, in some of your exotics, and in particular, if this comes off of the grass and it's on the main, then you really want to use Miss Invasive. The 2 and the 10 were sort of my other wild cards. The 2, Trip the Queen, whose last race on the grass was actually pretty good, finishing 3rd at Kentucky in a race that would stack up very well with these. Another one, though, who doesn't mind finishing 2nd with those 6 runner-up efforts. And then the 10, And Isles, whose most recent turf races came over at Canterbury, and those would stack up very well in here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 2. I have 3, 4, 5 as my top tier. Horses that are must-uses for me in this race. You want to go a little deeper, it would be 6, 10, 2. Let's close it out. 9th race, Friday. Sam Houston, $15,000 claimers, non-winners of 2, 6 furlongs. The distance, I thought the 9, Eyes on a Point. You know, he tossed the race going long on the turf last time out. 2 starts back, was against a horse named Sun Path, who was in stakes, and that was a very highly regarded runner. That was going long on the main. Let's look at the race that was good for this filly. Sprinting on the dirt at Keeneland, sitting a nice trip, winning, beating maiden 30s at Keeneland. That stacks up really well with this group. The number 6, Chicks Dig Money, really does feel like the one to beat, because when you look at how this race will shape up on paper, the 1's going to go, Scampering Gracie. The 3, Stylin' Uptown, is really, really quick. I don't think the 2, Canada Candy, is quite as quick as them, but I think she will be forwardly placed. You're going to get at least those horses showing pace, and maybe even a horse like Misty Shack who showed a little. But at the least, you're going to get 2 really quick horses in Scampering Gracie and Styling Uptown. I think Chicks Dig the Money gets a perfect trip from off the pace. I wouldn't talk you off singling the chalk of the 6 if you wanted to. I'll use at least the 9 along with the 6, because I feel like Eyes on a Point could also get that very same trip and could be doing it at a fair price, at a much better price. So that is Friday for Sam Houston. And don't worry, we're going to get to Saturday, Sam Houston, in just a moment. We're going to get to Saturday with Emily Gullikson, and we're going to talk some fairground stakes races. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about Old Smoke. OldSmokeClothing.com is the website, and the promo code GINO will get you free shipping on your order. What Old Smoke Clothing is it's a couple of guys who got together, combining love for the sport of thoroughbred racing with a thoughtful nod to the rich traditions and pageantry of the sport. They are named after the founding father of Saratoga Racecourse, Old Smoke John Morrissey. If you want to hear about a character with some incredible stories, please go spend a few minutes and look up John Morrissey, Old Smoke, who this company is named after. And what is Old Smoke? We're talking about high-quality clothing, high-quality products rooted in the iconic symbols of racing and the racetrack experience. You can find anything you need at Old Smoke Clothing if you're a horse racing fan. We're talking t-shirts, long sleeves, hoodies, hats, zip-ups, you name it, they've got it. If you are into custom designs, they can help you out. Maybe you and your friends have an inside joke. Maybe there was a big horse that made you both a lot of money. Maybe a horse that you want to represent, or a horse that you own, or anything at all, a slogan that you use when you're out at the racetrack rooting home your winners. Old Smoke will do those custom designs for you. And then the clubhouse, the Old Smoke Clubhouse, it's a $500 annual fee. They give you 4 packages a year, quarterly packages. The Eclipse, the Derby, the Spa, the Royal, they deliver 4 different times throughout the year, 1 in January, 1 in April, 1 in July, 1 in October. And for that $500 fee, you get in each package, a t-shirt only available to members, a custom horse racing themed gift, more package fillers. You'll also get a headwear piece exclusively for members. You'll get a designer outerwear piece, 20% off all the orders, and access to the Old Smoke Clubhouse online forum where you can interact with other horse players that are like-minded. This is a way for you to show the horse racing fan for you authentic She Dares the Devil, Midnight Bisou, any of the horses that you're fans of recently, or even the old-timers, Secretariat, Seabiscuit, they've got it all for you there. oldsmokeclothing.com. Use that promo code GINO. It'll get you free shipping on your order. Right now, we turn the page from Friday to Saturday. Let's get you to Fairgrounds for Saturday stakes races with Emily Gullikson from Optics EQ. We're going to discuss the final 4 races on the card. Remember, it's going to be pretty wet. They canceled the Thursday card. It's supposed to be raining all weekend, so it wouldn't be a shock if they came off the grass. That's why I wanted to focus on the last 4. There's only 1 turf race in there, and the Derby race and the Philly prep races, I feel like if they get a lot of rain, at least maybe they won't be decimated like turf races would. So Emily and I recorded this conversation late Wednesday, so anything that's changed over the last day or so, just keep that in mind when you're doing your handicapping and when you're listening along to us. So a big thank you to Emily. We spend about 45 minutes going through those 4 stakes races for Saturday Fairgrounds. Get your past performances out for the 13th and turn to race number 10 at Fairgrounds. Really fun time of the year now in the world of horse racing, because it's every week where it's a different racetrack that has a Kentucky Derby or Kentucky Oaks prep. They get sort of 2 or 3 of their big days per meet, and I think this is like the 3rd round that we're going to be talking about a lot of these same horses. Our good friend Emily Gullikson, Optics EQ, back joining us to talk about the Fairgrounds card and 4 of the stakes races that end the card coming up on Saturday. Emily, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's funny because it's the only 4 races we're going to talk
only. We did 7 and 6 a couple times, but I think mainly because of the weather this week, I wanted to just sort of play it a little more safe, because a lot of the races, if we talked about a couple more that were on the grass, we'd probably just get a ton of scratches from the looks of it. So I think even before we start, handicapping the races, that's one thing to let everybody know that, when you're doing your handicapping, you probably want to take some note of that, because it's supposed to be pretty wet out there. Wouldn't be a surprise to see a lot of the races earlier in the card taken off the grass. I mean, if there was one that stayed on the grass, it might be the one that we end up talking about. So I prefer talking those 3 dirt races. So at least if things go crazy, we may not get as much chaos in those.
Right. And I don't know, we wanted ready to just jump right in, but we have like some cross-entered horses that start off in race 10, the grade 3 mine shaft.
So we'll try to give you all of the information that we have so far. We are recording this like Wednesday evening, and so just keep looking on DRF, Twitter, all different places where you'd find that information. Marcus Hirsch, as I know, someone that you and I was following as far as following Fairgrounds, he does a good job of like getting the information out on Twitter, who's going to be running where. So we've got an interesting race in the mine shaft, and even another like big picture thought about these particular races. There are the races that a lot of these horses in races 10, 11, 12, 13 that we're looking at, they come out of the January 16th sort of prep day where they were in their particular race, and almost all of the races that day were so freaking slow early on. It was like head scratching to see how slow the pace was. There were so many horses in each of those races that seemed like for some reason they were just not showing the normal speed or like tactical or positional speed that they had. That's just going to be a common occurrence that we're going to see through a couple of these races. And I guess that's another thing just to take note, big picture, because they were just crawling that day.
Right. And like you mentioned, in a lot of those races. So it is important to keep in mind, just in terms of one, like kind of overall performance, upgrading and downgrading horses. And then for today, trying to assess trips, like, you would think that like kind of naturally the jockeys would like learn from mistakes, right? So, maybe they do something a little bit different this time, which is just another piece of the puzzle.
So let's start in race number 10 on Saturday. Get your past performances out. We are looking at the mine shaft on February the 13th, grade 3. This is an interesting group. It's not a big group, but one thing we'll have to take notice is a horse who, whether or not you like him or think he's going to could win this race, he would definitely have a big say in the pace shape of this race or the race after this, and that's Blackberry Wine. So just keep in mind that he is cross-entered in this race and in the grade 3 Fairgrounds. If that race were to come off the turf, I think he'd probably run there. and try to just steal that race, up front. That wouldn't shock me. I think they may even be why they cross-entered him, because they're thinking that, oh, you know what, that race could very easily come off and be a pretty soft spot if that were the case.
Right, but they also, because Wells Bayou is also cross-entered at Oaklawn, and I know Oaklawn has already canceled, but if Wells Bayou is out of the race, then Blackberry Wine probably runs here because he could be potentially low in speed.
Yep. And
I don't think the other riders would necessarily let him get quite lone speed, especially for him, the type of because he sort of needs that soft pace. Mm-hmm. Like he showed last out where he just had an easy lead, had the flow, all that stuff. That I know when we were doing the race, one of the questions you brought up with Dinar was, where is he going to be in the race? Because mm-hmm. he was stretching out in distance, and the trainer Duel, she had another runner. She had the runners bookend of the field. They both were kind of front running type. So I would expect, number 5 Dinar, he could probably show a little bit of speed. And even, Maxfield, and he took his run style completely different, which, mm-hmm. I think that I know the speed figure kind of came back pretty solid, but I think just kind of overall performance, I think it just kind of, a testament to his class, but also kind of worth upgrading from that perspective.
Yeah. So, from a pace standpoint, it'll be very interesting to see Blackberry Wine and then Wells Bayou. We saw Wells Bayou. He came off the bench. He hadn't raced since May and the Arkansas Derby. And then we saw him show up, and he wasn't on the lead. He ended up just sort of sitting second and just kind of merry-go-rounded in second most of the way around behind Blackberry Wine. Title Ready came and ran them down. There wasn't a whole lot of passing in that race, really, and that was, sort of the story all January 16th, where horses were just sitting either right behind or on the lead and ended up winning. So, do we think now he's going to be handled more aggressively in here? Let's just say, for the conversation of this race, that both him and Blackberry Wine are in here. Mm-hmm. Do you think they would try different tactics and say, okay, we sat behind him last time. Are we going to try to get more aggressive and get in front of this horse, or do we play it any differently?
Yeah, he broke slow on January 16th. Mm-hmm. So I think it was the fact of he's coming off, I'm talking about Wells Bayou right now. So Wells Bayou broke slow. And I think just the fact of him coming off the layoff, they're like, okay, you know what, let's do something different versus trying to rush into the race. So I think with that race under his belt, drawing inside today, I would expect them to be aggressive in this spot. Yeah. Right from the start. You have the inside, you have a potential, type of pace advantage. You know how this horse runs his best. You're going to get a rider change. Velasquez, I would just assume that he's not going to try to get too cute with this horse and just put him right in the race right from the start.
So while we're talking about that race, that Louisiana, let's talk about another one of the horses who comes out of that race, Sonneman, who I liked a little bit in that spot, and he's pretty honest. He's sort of grindy though. He doesn't really have a massive turn of foot, and so he sort of feels like he might have to fall into the type of trips to win. He'll try hard, and I just don't really know what to do with him in this spot.
Yeah, the thing with him is he's been chasing those very slow paces in the last, not just the Grade 3 Louisiana, but going back to the Tenacious, mm-hmm. and even back in November at Churchill Downs. And so I think that's kind of played a role. At Churchill Downs, that being an allowance field, he was kind of able to overcome. But it was getting a rider change to Talamo, which, James Graham can be on the passive side as well. So I think maybe just having a rider change, that might just kind of signal, hey, look, don't get this horse too far back, kind of put him in the race. And as you mentioned, sometimes being grindy is an asset. Key off on Title Ready, just kind of being in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And so, if Sonneman's able to just kind of, put himself into the race a little bit more, there's a little bit more pace signed on. He's, like you said, he's honest, he's been consistent, he's been improving. There's, it wasn't a great ride last time out. He was against the flow. So there's mm-hmm. upside from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree. He looks like one of the ones in here that's sort of the most interesting if you're looking to maybe play a horse. And then we have the two horses that are coming out of some of the allowance races. We have Chess Chief, who actually beat Enforceable back in December, and then you have Enforceable, who's who's always been a pretty solid horse and sort of like a late running grindy type that we were sort of talking about with Sonneman, but he really exploded in his last start. He got a massive figure. He won by 8 lengths. He was a little more tactical in that race too. It wasn't like there was much of a change of anything. It just seemed like he exploded. What do we do with Enforceable coming off of that big race?
Yeah, I mean, that really it was a massive effort. And he is stepping up in class. I mean, the race that he came back in on December 18th, it wasn't the best ride. He was on hold and he was wide early. So it wasn't a great ride. The top two were both together at the wire. So it was kind of a sneaky trip. I would say the one thing about him is that if you just look at his fairgrounds races, he loves this track. And I know if you're kind of looking at standard PPs, you'll be like, but the 5th place in the Louisiana Derby, he had trouble that day and he was against the flow. That was like a sneaky good effort from him. So in my opinion, I don't think he's ever run a bad, quote unquote, bad race on this track. And so, kind of looking from an alternative from that perspective, he's got to step up in class. The graded stakes has been kind of hit or miss for him, although he does have the grade 3 comps, this is a grade 3 race. So, you have a horse that likes the track, a horse that's in good form, a rider that has some confidence aboard. So there's definitely things to like on Enforceable.
Yeah, it's an interesting group. I mean, there are a lot of horses that, we've sort of got familiar with through the years, through the last year and a half or so. These are horses that were on the Derby trail and that are now stepping up in older. So we'll see. It's funny. You kind of forget that Maxfield still hasn't lost a race. He's just super honest. And like you said, he showed some maturity perhaps with showing this new positional speed that he never really had showed. If he has that kind of tactical speed, he'll probably be pretty tough to beat against this group.
Yeah, I mean, he's, it's kind of like sort of the way that you have to approach this race is sort of like either you're for or you're against Maxfield, right? Because it's just not a race that you want to use Maxfield and spread. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to make a decision on that front. And it's a tough decision because what can you knock, right?
Yeah.
He's like you said, he's done 4. He's been able to change his running style. He's been able to run from off the pace. Now he showed he could run on the pace. Drew figured him out. He's second off. He's run at this distance track. All that stuff. It's like it checks. But it's kind of the same thing I said about him last time. Sometimes, if he can be his own worst enemy, if he goes back to his first couple starts where he breaks slow and he's well off the pace, or he breaks slow and then he's rushed up into a pace and rushed up chasing with Wells Bayou, it's like maybe the trip ends up getting him beat. And maybe that's just the one factor today. So, it's kind of a tricky from a value and playing standpoint on how you approach this.
Yeah, and a lot of it'll have to do with, who is actually in this race come post time. Between Wells Bayou, Blackberry Wine, one of them, none of them, both of them, that'll change the complexion of this race. Mineshaft is the 10th race on Saturday at Fairgrounds. Let's move to the 11th race on Saturday at Fairgrounds. It is the grade 3 Fairgrounds, and they'll go 1.1 miles on the turf course here. So Blackberry Wine, who we just talked about in the 10th, is also entered in this race. Again, if this were to come off of the grass for some reason, I think he'd be super, super live and tough to run down. But in this race, if it were to stay on the grass and he were to be in here with his running style, it probably would not be all that easy with a horse like Factor This, who we know just has to be close to or on the lead. And I think the same can be said for Spectacular Gem, who wants to be pretty close to or on the lead. So if he's in here and it is on the grass, I don't know if it'll necessarily be the easiest trip for him up front.
Yeah, no, I don't think it would be. I think their best scenario is that they're looking for this race to come off the turf and scratch down. And that would be the only way that he stays in. And if it doesn't scratch down, like you said, he's got those horses that have pace pressure. I mean, Factor This, he's going to go. I mean, Brad Cox has 2 horses. They both have complementary running styles. Factor This being the front runner, they are going, regardless of whether Blackberry won in the race or not. And then Spectacular Gem, I think logically, you would say he has to go. That's his best running style. But I also get concerned with horses like this that it's that's been his running style and he's failed. So they might try to change it up. You've seen riders do this before, right? I mean, Spectacular Gem has won from off the pace in the past. So they might, from the outside again, maybe their hand is forced. Maybe that's too tough a task. But I could see kind of in this scenario, maybe's the day that they decide to get cute in the field. But, if you go back to it, if Black White One doesn't run in this race, and, they do try to get cute on Spectacular Gem, that certainly helps factor this.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of Factor This. I think he's one of those horses that he needs everything his own way on the front end. He could run those big races at times, but he just needs he needs to be lone. He needs to have his own pace. He has to be in the right condition. He's coming off a little bit of a break today. There's things about him that I just, I don't like, but if it ends up after the scratches, he could be upgraded a little bit. Just from that perspective.
A couple horses that I'm curious about. They're, I guess you can say, sort of new faces. We've got the 2 Set Piece, who is more of a synthetic. When you take a first glance, you go, oh, okay, this is a synthetic horse. But his dirt races aren't really that bad, and you can probably make some excuses for them as they're sort of sandwiched by layoff lines. One of them was behind Grade 1 winner Digital Age. Another one was behind Big Agenda, who actually came over here against this same company and ran second and didn't really love the ride on that one. Was surprised that he ended up on the lead there, which was weird. We always want horses to be aggressive, but then that horse was on the lead, and I was wondering why. Set Piece, what do we do with the horse like this who comes off of a couple big synthetic wins?
I'm not a fan of this horse, and I understand his wins are good. They're tough to knock. He can run on the turf as well as a synthetic. But this is what I'm suspect on this horse about. Is he came over, he had graded stakes form. He's with Chad Brown. And he makes his first start in the U.S. Last summer at Churchill Downs. It was a big effort, right? He got a B+ optics grade, solid speed figure. So from that perspective, optics has it slightly higher than Brisnet. So it's a solid. You would think at that point that was an N2X, they're going to go to graded stakes, right? Look at this horse, right? There's no reason why this horse should not go into graded stakes, but they don't. He stays at the allowance condition. They find an N3X. He had some trouble, fine, whatever. But then they still they scratch out of a stake to run in another allowance, and then they end up running the synthetic. So it just kind of from the intention standpoint, it just shows you there's some quality concerns, because just looking back at where he started, the barn that he's in, that first race back with a big win, and the fact that they haven't gone to stakes and just the spots that they've picked just makes me suspect on him.
We have another new face who was a runner-up last time out, first time in North America for Graham Motion, talking about Dance Teria, who is actually a former Group 1 winner in Germany back in 2019. Do you think this guy has the right to step forward second time in the U.S.?
I think that this is probably the best horse in the field.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I mean, he has that quality. He's second off. His race last time out was a better than looked. He didn't have pace to close into, which is
huge gallop out too. I'm not a big gallop out, but he was he was really feeling well towards the end of that race.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really classy horse. And if you just kind of go through it and you kind of look, class on the turf is just such an old school angle. And if you just kind of go through this field, it's
no, you're right. They all seem sort of allowance-y horses. They really do. Yeah.
Right. And it's they can pop with a good race here and there, but it's I said, with back to this, it's they just need everything to go right. And this is a horse that it just, he has the class. He can run his race when things don't go right. He showed that last time out. It's the opposite angle. He runs a good race in the allowance, and then Motion goes right into stakes company. So it's the opposite kind of intention with Set Piece. So I have no knocks on this horse. I think he's very solid in here.
Let's see. We have, the very sharp. We have to mention Logical Myth, but sort of kind of the opposite of what we were saying with Danceteria, who feels sort of like class and maybe a horse who could overcome some things. Logical Myth has really gotten perfect trips in his last two.
Yeah, he has. And, maybe he just lucks out and gets another one today, but I'm going to have to take him on again because I think he's going to be a short price. I think there's other options in this race. But I see intention going on there. And we'll see. We'll see if he ends up getting another good trip. He's parked outside today, which is a little bit of a change from his most recent races where he was able to save ground. And I think saving ground was kind of the key to those races.
A horse that we mentioned last time who was coming off the bench, who I thought ran okay, was Peace Achieved. Do you give this horse a look and another opportunity to step forward now with his second start as a 4-year-old?
Yeah, he has that potential for sure. And I thought that the trip was subtle, right? Because it was just kind of like, it wasn't like full excuse worthy, but you take all those factors in. He's coming off the layoff. It wasn't ideal. You had a perfect trip winner, all those things, and certainly has the license to move forward this afternoon for sure.
So I think we've got through.
And then I'll talk about captivating.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask who haven't we talked about?
On the turf.
Yeah.
So he can, maybe another one that probably needs like the perfect trip to win, but he's a good underneath key. And I think, I know why they've been running him on the dirt. He has good dirt form, but I think he can run just as well on the turf. So kind of an exotic key worth a mention.
Yeah, and a lot of these horses that are sort of off the pace types, like there's many versions of this race where Factor This and Spectacular Gem go pretty quick early on and set it up for the horses that want to come from off the pace. So if you like one of them, if you think that they're going to be a good price, if you have some built-in excuses for some of their races, or you think they're going to step forward, if those two horses are both in here, it's probably a good chance to take a shot against them. Or like you said, if for some reason one of them isn't, like if Factor This is the only speed in here, obviously he could be really tough, but he generally, I'm with you, like he's usually a horse that I feel like is overplayed a little bit for his chances to win. People love to see the big figures and that he's got all the ones in the speed and that he's going to be out front. So yeah, I guess depending on how you're approaching some of these late exotics, and it'll depend on, who stays in this race. But I think to me, the 4 looks like, or the Dancer Taria looks absolutely like the best, most logical horse to play in this race and probably the most likely winner.
Yeah. I think he's really strong in here.
Let's get to the points races. We've got the Rachel Alexandra, and then we've got the Risen Star. So first up, race number 12 at Fairgrounds on Saturday, the Grade 2 Rachel Alexandra, a mile and a 16th on the main. We have Travel Column, who was your Grade 2 Golden Rod winner, and Clairiere, who was right behind Travel Column back in November. We haven't seen either one of them since November, but they both show up here off of good efforts last time out. You have Charlie's Penny is going to be scratched out of this race. You sent me that message yesterday to let me know. So no Charlie's Penny in here when you're doing your handicapping. Don't even worry about Charlie here. We have Super Sensational, who I loved last time out, and I did not like the ride, and I'm definitely going to be heading back to Super Sensational today. Where do you end up in this 12th?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to start with the horses that are coming out of the Goldenrod. I know you watch a lot of tape. Did you happen to go back and watch that race?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, you saw, if anybody that's watching the race, it's Travel Column looks like she should have lost like 5 different times in that race.
Super impressive.
And she ended up winning. I mean, it was just, it was a great ride, to kind of overcome all of that. And so, I mean, it's just tough to knock at this point. I mean, that was a solid effort. She hasn't done anything wrong. Slightly improving, comes back in the right way. Drew sticks with her, all that good stuff. I mean, Clairiere is solid as well. I mean, I didn't mind her second place finish. No. I know, it was second with the other filly, but I mean, she was wide. She kind of had to move early. There's some quality with her that I just, I have a hard time splitting those two, to be perfectly honest. And
I agree.
Will probably be the bigger price, in the race, without much between them. And in Super Sensational, I mean, the ride was just terrible, especially with the pace. I mean, she looked like she could have been inside speed. She definitely wasn't. It was, solid effort for her to get second because she just was taken out of her running style. It was off the layoff. It's first time dirt, first time 2 turns, a mess of a ride. I figured they would do a rider change, but, we're going to have to roll the dice with Carava.
Yeah, again.
But I don't think this is a scenario where they are inside, and I think they will be a little bit more assertive today.
Completely agree. And it doesn't mean they have to be on the lead. Just get a little bit more aggressive. That was the problem, is that if he, in her January 16th race, she was fine. Like, naturally, she was right there with the leaders sort of going into the turn. And if they would have just asked a little bit, she might have been in the second flight instead of in, like, the 3.5 flight, where you're, like, waiting behind horses and you're just at the mercy of everybody everybody else if they would have just been a little bit more aggressive, get her in a little more tactical like spot. And I think she's really versatile, and we loved her Woodbine races, and they've come back live so far. I think this is a good spot for her as a bet, probably, because Clairiere and Travel Column, they're good, and they could very easily be better than her. I think if you're looking for someone to bet in this race, it's probably Super Sensational, because maybe she's got the race under her belt, and she's just a little bit sharper than the two of them who might need this race to get a little bit sharper next time out. So I couldn't really, for me at least, I couldn't really get to much more than those three.
Yeah. John sent me a message earlier, and he's like, he liked the way that the three finished, and I don't disagree. And just think she's kind of improving and finished up that race because they were going pretty fast early. But again, I mean, after a 26 opening quarter, they have a license to go a little bit quick at some point, and then kind of continued out well. So maybe there's some upside with her, more of it underneath. It's hard to see her, kind of turn the tables on those. And then I agree, the rest of the field just looks a little bit below.
Yeah, like zoom me up even. She just got a perfect trip. Like such a perfect trip winning her last race. She's on the improve. She's going to have to keep stepping up. I don't know if she's just the quality of those other top three. Little Stitious, the other Amos horse. I mean, she couldn't really have asked for much of an easier trip on the lead than she got last time out, just cruising. I don't know why she's going to be able to improve that much against this group. I didn't really see excuses for her. So I think there are a couple quality fillies in here, and it just comes down to, like for me, the price between the three of them, I really don't have any knocks. I sort of like you on any of them. Like Travel Column was pretty awesome, and she was behind. She shifted out. She had trouble at the beginning, like multiple bouts of trouble, just every right to lose that race. But I sort of felt the same with you. Like normally I would not like a horse like Clairiere as much when a horse like Travel Column felt like they had a bunch of trouble and won. But she wasn't bad. She didn't get the perfect trip, and that was just her second start, and that was going from maidens into graded stakes company. So she's got plenty of upside also. Yeah,
and the thing about Clairiere is if you go back, she could have also been a little bit maybe a quicker turnaround with her because she ran a really good race to win first out. I mean, first out going
long,
turns,
yeah.
And was wide, throughout. So it's like there was some taxing aspect in that. And then Will Secret ran third, and Will Secret is solid. That is, she's like a legit Oaks contender. Yep. So the fact that Clairiere had to, run that big race on debut and then was wide, I think having a little bit of time between, in this case, makes sense for her, and this spot kind of picked out. And then Travel Column, I guess you could say kind of the one thing, if you're really nitpicking, is that she doesn't break well. Mm-hmm. And so, you're probably dealing with another slow start and then another one of those type of trips where it's like she's just going to have to be much the best to overcome.
Yeah, and from a pace standpoint, we probably see, a horse like Becca's Rocket is got to be in this race to show some speed. Little Stitious will try to do their best to show some speed again. And I mean, that's why when we look at Super Sensational, there's no reason why she can't be at the very least sitting like a nice third in here.
Right, yeah. I mean, looking at her on standard, she's like right in the center of the plot. So it's like kind of one of those spots where she should be tracking like right off that first flight.
Let's move to the Risen Star here. Mile and an eighth for 3-year-olds, 400,000 up for grabs, grade 2, Kentucky Derby points on the line. So from what we know now, Keep Me in Mind is going to be scratched out of this race and will be pointed to the rescheduled Southwest. You had alluded to it earlier. Oaklawn is canceling their races from Saturday through Monday this week. So there's just going to be bad weather all over the place. Keep that in mind when you're doing all your handicapping, all over. If you're looking at places, make sure you look out at the track feed, at the video to see what the track looks like too before you put a wager in. So we know Keep Me in Mind is out. It does look like, from what I've seen, they're still making a decision on Defeater, who we can see is cross-entered in a different spot. But I think that's about it. They said that Beep Beep and Carrillo, I think, will be headed in here. So we'll still get a pretty sizable field, even with Keep Me in Mind out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, from that perspective, I thought Keep Me in Mind was solid, but did have to, give up a little bit of recency. And with that being a short price, maybe was kind of like to your angle in the last race, giving an edge to recency.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And so Mandaloon will probably be favored in here, and certainly makes sense. I mean, he was a big favorite last time out, and I know he didn't win, but like that just wasn't. It was a sneaky bad trip, just him being wide throughout. They're going to put the blinkers on, and I just thought, he showed enough in that race to where there's really nothing to knock, and certainly in this field where it's like I can find a lot to knock, in this race. I mean, Midnight Bourbon. I don't think he's necessarily in need the lead. I think that was like they took advantage of a situation, and so we'll see. Him kind of have to like quote unquote prove it. I'm not a fan of Proxy. I think he just kind of happened to land in second. He's constantly drifting out. He doesn't hold a straight line. So I mean, he's probably going to get attention because he's got a record of 2 wins in 2 seconds and 4 starts. Which is going to get some attention somewhere. I think that catches up to him. So I know Santa Cruiser was a horse you liked last time out.
Yeah.
And he the slow start, he had to close against the flow. I think he has some upside, but
I agree.
He's kind of playing catch up at this point.
He may not be as good. I could kind of see him underneath. I think watching it, he just had no shot with that start, and the way they were going so slow. He literally was about 15 lengths out of it at one point. I completely agree with what you said about Mandaloon, though. I do think he's the one to beat again. And actually similar thoughts on Midnight Bourbon in that he's not a need the lead. He can sit. He's sort of big, so he's like a kind of a big, still like goofy learning horse that's maturing, and he'll continue to be like tougher to pass and a tough horse along these races. I just don't know if he's going to win every race, but I think he's going to be a horse who's all like generally in the mix. He seems like he's a pretty hard trier here. One of the horses that I'm the most curious about, I wish he had a race under his belt before this, is Starring in My Dreams. And it's funny because, I can't remember many Dallas Stewart horses, and this is just off the top, but it almost seems like every Dallas Stewart horse is a stone cold closer. Like they're always like coming from behind and coming from way out of it. Very rarely do we see one who's got some tactical speed and actually shown a little bit of speed sprinting too. What do you think about a horse like Starring in My Dreams?
Yeah, no, I agree with you that just in terms of recency, I just think this is a tough test today. Coming back, off the layoff, having to go, first time 2 turns maybe it won't be a fast track. Probably not going to be a fast track. Yeah. So some credit, the race-to-race progression, but I just think in terms of timing, it's kind of a tough spot for him.
Especially the 8th. Like the mile in the 8th is what hurts too. If this was like a mile and a 16th even, or like a flat mile, I'd give his win chances a little bit more. I wouldn't be shocked if he runs a good race. I like the fact that the horse that he beat in his debut, Hidden Stash, just came back and ran pretty well in the Sam F. Davis. Actually should have won that race, but he's really quirky about switching leads late. He just doesn't like to do it, so he ended up running 3rd there. But at least his form has been flattered a little bit with, at least from like a class standpoint. I don't think he would be overmatched in here. This is a lot to ask off of, a few months, going a mile and 8th against some other horses who have a little more seasoning right now.
Right. Yeah, that was just sort of where I felt,
yep.
He'd probably need one. You want to see a good effort and then, see what you want to do with him going forward. Mm-hmm. The horse I'm kind of like most interested in here is Carrillo. His debut, I thought I don't know who he beat because it's an Aqueduct, it's a 1-turn mile, but I like the way just his visuals, like he was behind horses, it was not a clean trip, and it was just one of those where it's like, this horse has so much run, where you can just tell early on, you're like, oh my God, this horse is the winner. Yeah. And it's like, it's like stuff is going wrong, but you're like, this horse is so much better than all the other horses in this group. All he has to do is get into the clear. And then he gets in the clear and he ends up winning. And it was like, it was kind of a grind, but, Aqueduct can be like that, just like in terms of the surface, and races can kind of look that way. And I just, I thought that effort was really promising. And then Autonomous does have, like you mentioned, Defeater in this field, and they're cross-centered, and that might be a reason why. But James Graham is on Carrillo over Defeater. Mm-hmm. In this spot, which is obviously, that's a decision because he rode Defeater, first out, solid win first out, and he's never been aboard Carrillo. So just from that kind of perspective, it's like there was some positive intent, and after that race, he sold for quite a bit. So, there's some things to like. I think he's really interesting. He has to improve in a big way. I know his speed figure wasn't fast, so he has to kind of improve on that front and is going to go 2 turns. But I just, visually I liked what I saw from him, and he's interesting to kind of follow.
Yeah, because we do this a lot when we handicap the races, where we start like going through horses and eliminating. I like to do that sort of as, okay, this horse not quite the right spot, maybe next time for this one, and then I kind of get to the horses who I think are logical, who maybe I'd want to use in my exotics, and I don't eliminate him. I don't. He has a lot of upside. You start knocking a lot of other horses, and there's just nothing really to knock about him. Visually, he was extremely impressive. Like you said, he just looked like a winner all the way around. You could just tell he was traveling well. There's something there with this horse. Does that mean he can jump up and win this race? Who knows? But if he does, you want to have him right now before he does. Because if he runs a good second or third, the next time he won't be, maybe worth as playing as much.
Right. I mean, there's nobody in this field that like scares me.
There's no monsters.
No. I say, Mandaloon is like the most likely. He's logical. He's got seasoning. Blah blah blah. All those things, but he doesn't like scare me.
Not at all. None of them. Neither does Midnight Bourbon, neither does Senior Boscador, who we'll talk a little bit about. Right. This is an absolute stone cold closer who you talk about visually impressive races. I mean, he was so far out of it and just inhaled the field on the outside, went right on by. Horse he beat Cowan, I believe, is going to go run in Saudi Arabia in the Saudi Arabia Derby. And he was behind Caddo River also, I think, over at Oaklawn Park recently. So what do we do with Senior Buscador? I think, I think he was one of those horses where they went back and upgraded his figure after he won the Springboard Mile. I never know what to do with horses like that when that happens.
Well, we have the race pretty fast as well.
Okay.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, just visually, it's like he was like off the screen. Like you'd think he wasn't even in the race, right?
No,
and then it's like, oh, who's this guy? Here he comes, just my thing with him is it's a value standpoint. He's going to be a horse that gets a lot of attention because of the figures, because of that impressive, for in some intent, the right reasons. But it's a deep closer to short price. The Springboard Mile, it hasn't been a strong race going forward. So this is just a serious class test. This afternoon, I mean, Cowan, I think he's one of those ones that was, and correct me, but he was the one that was like a turf sprinter, and then they recently tried to stretch him out. Or is that a different horse?
No, that was him. Yeah, and then he went to the Springboard Mile, and then what was it? Smarty Jones, right?
Okay,
I think.
Right. So I think they're kind of distance-wise trying to figure out where he is. So I don't know. It's like one of those where if he's fine, like usable underneath, but not a horse I can just really get excited about on top. And if I'm wrong, then he can definitely prove it.
Yeah. So let's see. We've got a sharp. It's funny, not Bezos. Oh, Bezos, definitely not Bezos in a spot like this after his race this past weekend. Although the race I think is going to end up being a little bit better than people are giving credit for because there was so much hype on the horse. But Bezos, who's looking for a third consecutive win, he's going to try to stretch out though from 6 furlongs to a mile and an eighth. Does this horse have any shot in here?
This is a lot to ask. I mean, just stretching out for the first time, and not just like to a mile, but to 9 furlongs. It's just such a big ask. He's a horse, he breaks slow in every start. So it's like you have a sprinter that breaks slow, and now he's going to go 2 turns. It's like I have no idea the type of trip that he's going to get. Maybe, you could say, he's improving, all that stuff, which is positive. And so you got to take a shot at some point, might as well go for it. But I just, I can't get to him. There's just too much to overcome.
So I think we've hit most of this field. It sounds like from a pure wagering standpoint, like the horse for you to bet is probably Carrillo in here. Is it Carrillo? Why am I saying it? I said I think 3 different ways.
And I just read it, so I don't say it until all of a sudden I'm like,
I noticed too. I used to do it a lot. A lot of my replays I'm watching now are when sometimes I have a kid that's asleep, so I have him on Thailand, and then I'll realize when I go to read the name of a horse, like I probably should have listened to how the track announcer called that race. But
yeah, I keep telling. I always have the sound off, so I keep telling myself I'm going to do this stuff and like talk. I should not embarrass myself, and I should at least listen. And then I don't, and then I forget about it until I'm like on air. So
because it's funny because it's like in such a weird way, like I did that a lot more when I was on TVG and stuff, like when I was definitely knowing that I was going to be like live on TV, I wanted to make sure I didn't like butcher the name. But for me, in the pure, like, I'm trying to find the winner of the race and get all the best handicapping information, like the name of the horse is like the least important thing,
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's going to be like one I'm definitely going to use at a price. And then the obvious with Mandaloon. And that's pretty much it in terms of top spots. Yeah. And again, I can concede the fact that like some of these others could jump up, but I just think it just, kind of the analysis versus the price, it just kind of seems like I'd rather take a short price on a horse that I think is, a contender status than a short price that I think a horse is a kind of second tier contender status, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll probably play some sort of exotics where I do have Mandaloon. I think this is a really good spot for him. And this was nice. It's like he didn't run like the way that the conversation was sort of about him after that race. It would have been like he ran dead last and didn't progress. He progressed again. He actually showed more improvement, and he has the right to just continue to take another step forward. And I do think that Senior Buscador and Midnight Bourbon might. They're going to at least take some of the money away from him, no doubt about it. So to me, he's the most likely winner of the race. And if you're looking for some horses with upside, you mentioned Carrillo. I thought the one Storm in My Dreams, but I would prefer him probably in like second and third spots here. I'd love to see him run a really good race, but all that being said, I'll probably throw him in a pick 4 or pick 5 situation, because if he does run a big one, I like him enough to where I want to have him at like 10-1. So
absolutely.
I just wouldn't be probably betting a whole ton to win on a horse like this. I'd like to see like a little more from him, but I don't think he's like overmatched from a class perspective here. And just another thing, we mentioned at the beginning, keep an eye on the weather when you're looking at the races out there at fairgrounds everywhere, all over the place this weekend. And we I think are going to have another conversation or two maybe on Saturday. You mentioned that and I've been following along. You've been doing a lot of the Twitch streams so far. Tell us a little bit about how we can find those and what you've been doing.
Yeah, it's twitch.tv/mayhemily17 as a channel, and just follow so that you'll get alerts like when I go live. The typical schedule, like right now, will be Thursday kind of live, like basically keying around Fairgrounds and Oak Lawn, because they pretty much are at the same time, and then just kind of pop in and out of whatever else is running. And then on Saturday, sort of the same thing, kind of key those two tracks and then play whatever else is going on. And then Sunday I do like a recap show, like a Q&A, like, an Ask Me Anything type show on those days.
Anything, huh?
Yeah, anything.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really cool. I think it's a good format just in terms of like, because especially for this game, because everything is happening and changing and like going up to the minute, and that's more conducive to like how I play. So I'm able to kind of like play on the stream like how I play like myself, like typically, where it's like I look at the board, I look for opportunities, I look for favorites, I can handicap like all these races today. I mean, I handicapped them in like less than 10 minutes. Like it took us longer to talk about it and then handicap. Yeah. All the information's there. So now it's just a matter of, look at the board, nice. Yep. Look for opportunities, make plays, pass, all that stuff. So playing like, 3-4 tracks, I think sometimes 5 we'll throw in there. At just sort of that hour block. And it's been good. And it's been good. We've got a lot of good, like, chatter, people coming in with picks. Somebody like dropped in last week. They're like, "Oh, do you happen to like this 1A at Aqueduct?" Or like scores at 8-1, just like,
oh, nice.
Like
nice.
So we look at the race and it's like, oh yeah, definitely, let's get behind it. It looks good. Big square in quadrant 1. Like the horse just like drew off. It was like sweet. So that's been good. Plus, I also think it's been a year. It's been a year. We've been like under the pandemic and not like doing a lot of socialization. So I think this kind of helps a little bit too. I know for
like you're at the track. Yeah.
Yeah. I watch a lot of Twitch just generally, whether it's like politics streaming or chatting and all that stuff. And it's been like helpful for me to just kind of feel like I'm not, sitting alone in my apartment. Yeah. So I think for people, they appreciate that. And it's been good.
Yeah, I agree. I love the Twitch idea and the interacting with people, because That's so much what it's. We can handicap these races early and give you all the information for them. But then what ends up stinking is when you come Saturday and it's like, oh, there's a scratch or two, or a horse gets hammered, and then all of a sudden things have to change because the entire betting board looks different, and you have to call an audible and say, okay, I didn't like this horse at 5-2, but now the complexion has changed. This horse is the only speed. For some reason, somebody else got played, and this horse is 6-1.
Right.
And that's just a great way to be able to, explain that to people. There's so many different variables of what could happen in a race that, like, we can't sit here and predict everything that might happen on the betting board based on all the scratches, based on, like, this horse could take money, this horse floats up. Oh, if that's the case, then sure, I'll take Midnight Bourbon at 5-1. It's so much easier when it's right in front of you. Okay, now the 15 minutes leading up, here's what we initially thought, but now we have to change based on, we got to call an audible here based on the board. It's always got to be based on the board and on the value.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's a betting game. So you have to, that's like the number one indicator of play.
Emily, I already invited myself on your show this weekend, so I'll check in with you maybe early in the morning, and definitely like right around the time of these races that we talked about before. If you're on right around there, we can kind of see what's going on and who ended up in which spots, and kind of go over our thoughts one more time. And I look forward to it. I've checked in a few times and been watching you, and I always love learning. And you do it's great because for those of you who don't know, a lot of times what Emily is doing is she's pulling up all of the optic stuff right there while she's talking about the races with you. So you see the figures, you'll see the plot, you'll see some of their past races and comment lines and things like that. So, so if you want to ask about a horse, sometimes she can pull that up and show you and kind of see how a horse fits, or give you an idea of how she thinks that looks. And if I'm on there, feel free to ask any questions about the handicapping that I've done. We'd love to help you out, because hey, you know what? We're all playing against each other, but we're all in this together, and we want to make some money and help the folks out there learn a little bit, because I wouldn't be here if some smart people didn't help me learn.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm for the most part, unless it's a race I have to write about or talk about, I'm not even like looking at it, until I'll look at a certain like a pick 5 sequence or certain things like that. But for the most part, it's like I'm looking at the race
on the fly. Cool.
100%. I'm looking at it for the first time live. So I think that's kind of a cool learning tool as well for people.
Yeah, and it just shows you how much optics can help you when you're just, kind of handicapping that way. Maybe you don't have a ton of time, or they've already done so much. You and the people at Octus have already done so much to give you all of the information, the trip notes, the races, the figures, you have the plots, a little bit of everything. So it's just perfect if it's nice when there's a big card and everybody has time to watch a ton of replays. I'm a maniac. That's what I do all the time. I watch millions, but it's not logical or realistic to think that everybody has time to watch like every horse's replay to get to know them like that. That's what optics really, really can help you with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I didn't have a full-time job watching trip notes, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Emily at Emily Optics EQ on Twitter. You heard where you can follow her on the Twitch stream. Hopefully I'll join with her on Saturday, and I'll post some of the links to those to the streams on social media and stuff too, so you can follow along with us and with Emily, because she does such a great job covering all these different tracks. It might be a little lonely with no Oaklawn this weekend, but we'll definitely find some other places to play, and there'll be plenty to talk about with Fairgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Emily. Have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to talking with you this weekend.
Very good. Have a good one.
Folks, don't go anywhere. Big thanks again to Emily there for helping us out with the Fairground Stakes on Saturday. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back here on That's What G Said. Big thanks to Emily for helping us out. Always a great time talking races with Emily, and we may be jumping on that Twitch stream this weekend with her. But unfortunately, with all those racetracks canceling, it might be harder to stay on for a while. It's when there's multiple tracks and races coming up every few minutes. It's great because you can take some questions from people. You can predict, kind of preview a race, make some predictions, and then move on to the next when there won't be any Oaklawn, and who knows if it's really wet over at Fairgrounds, things may be a little different. Let's sort of recap the last 4 races, though. In the 10th, I will lean towards Enforceable, but I have a ton of respect for Maxfield, so I have 1-4 as my top tier there. Wells Bayou and Sonneman behind them. In race number 11, I love the 4 in here quite a bit. Danceteria, who If they're on the grass, I think he's going to be really, really tough. And if he's anything over 3-1, I think that's worthy of a win wager. I'll also use the 2 set piece in some of my exotics. Emily wasn't as high on set piece as I was. I think he's got a little bit of a shot, and it's mainly, I sort of agree with some of her assessments. Like I don't know if they think as highly of this horse as maybe like some of their placements would show, that they're he's not in graded stakes races a whole ton, but I just don't think a whole ton of this group, and I think he does get a trip. Piece Achieved would be the other one for me in here. Getting to the 12th, the Rachel Alexandra. I love the 2, super sensational. If she's anything over 4-1, I'm going to make a strong win wager on her. She's got so much more speed than she showed last time out. I think they have to get aggressive and sit second or third in here. The number 8 and the number 1 are both very logical, very live. Travel Column and Clairiere. So I would just have 2-8-1 in race number 12 at the fairgrounds. To close things out in the Risen Star, many ways to go in here. I would lean towards Mandaloon if you're looking for the most likely winner. So I will have Mandaloon all over the place. The 1 starring in my dreams is the horse I'm most intrigued by. I just don't know if he can do this right now. This might be a little too much to ask off the bench, going a mile and an eighth with only the 2 races under his belt. The 10, Santa Cruiser, who just had a completely terrible, brutal, put a line right through it start. And he actually ran pretty well after at one point being 15 lengths out of it. So just expect him to get much more involved in the race early on today. The number 6, Midnight Bourbon, is super logical for Asmussen. He's kind of a big horse who doesn't necessarily need the lead, but he'll be in the mix too. And then the 4, Carrillo, for me, is another one. So I have him 11, 1, 10, 6, 4. That's the order I've placed him for Fairgrounds in the Risen Star this weekend. Big thanks to Emily for helping us out there with Fairgrounds Saturday. Let's go to Sam Houston for Saturday, and we get over to Sam Sherman, a man who is just swinging a hot stick right now. This guy has been picking winners all throughout the meet, and now he's got horses that are firing. Insurrection with a big win, and won at like over 8-1. So Sam's going to join us to talk Saturday night, Sam Houston. Keep in mind, it's just a 9-race card, and the first and second races are both Arabian races on Saturday. So we'll be talking races 3 through 9, talk the early pick 4, and all of the late races too, races 3 through 9 on the Saturday card at Sam Houston with Sam Sherman. Another week of Sam Houston racing coming to a close. We're going to discuss the Saturday card here on That's What G Said podcast with owner, handicapper, good friend of the show now, Sam Sherman, who had a good week himself. Sam, Insurrection gets the W on Wednesday for you, and you and I were just talking a little before we started recording. I was pretty surprised that at 8.5-1 or so the price was.
Yeah, I was not expecting him to win. Like I said, he would not have been 8-1 if I thought he was going to win the race. Happy to win the first race at Sam Houston. I think we have a good shot on the card we are going to talk about today, too.
Yeah, so great time to have you on because we could congratulate you for that win and talk about a very, very live runner that you're going to have on Saturday. It's just a 9-race card on Saturday, and the first 2 are Arabian races. I steer clear of those myself. I just don't even get involved. And when I was talking to you, you said the same thing. So we're going to take you through races 3 through 9. Just hey, I would never want to steer anyone in the wrong direction. So we'll play to our strengths here, and we'll talk the thoroughbred races that we know best. In the third, so the wagers will sort of follow that you can start your pick 4s in race number 3. They'll kind of keep them out of the Arabian races. You can still play those races, but they get that a lot of us thoroughbred players wouldn't want to necessarily be starting a pick 4 or having a pick 4 or 5 in the middle of a race that we weren't that confident in. So third race, 10 claimers, 6 furlongs the distance. Where are you starting in here, Sam?
So I think there's a lot of speed in this race. Yes. There's kind of a lot of similar horses. So I was looking at one who could maybe either sit off it or close. And I'm going to go back to one that I picked on your podcast last week or a couple weeks ago, and Maria Chuchenya. She was the favorite on January 21st. She didn't run a bad race. She just, she just lost. Comes back here. It's a little bit of a step up in class from 7,500 to 10, but I think these are pretty much the same horses. That, at Houston, there aren't the class discrepancy from 7,500 to 10 is nothing. They're the same horses in here. So I thought maybe she could kind of sit off the pace and close. I think you're probably not going to get quite all of 8-1, but I think you're going to be pretty close.
Like
because
maybe 5-ish. Yeah, at least or so. Yeah.
And I know last time we talked, or maybe just on Twitter, I used to own Golden Lullaby, and I did not think she was going to run well at all. And she ran a great race at 25-1 to get second. I think, there's a lot of other speed in here. She might have been kind of the lone speed that day. So
yeah, that's the problem.
Tougher.
Completely agree with you, and completely agree with your assessment of this race. I think I would play against the speeds, and I'm going to be using like the 2, 4, and 6 solely for that reason, which will probably give you an opportunity to get a couple, middle type price horses in there. Rizzy's Honor can sit a little bit too, and we see NJ's Brass in a lot of the horses running lines here. In Maria Chuchena, I agree with you. She wasn't bad. It was on an off track too, where she's been okay, but sometimes it's just a little bit harder to make up ground there when she was chasing lone speed. Doesn't look like there's going to be lone speed with Karate Hottie, Golden Lullaby, and Shaq Laka Laka will probably be pretty close to it. You figure those three, maybe even Miss Invasive, who can kind of press a little bit. So that's why I'll throw her in. But I have the 2 and 4 as sort of my top 2 here with the 6. And I think this is maybe a good race where we could play against the speeds who might be the shorter prices here.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think if I were playing at pick 4, I would probably leave the 9-5 favorite just totally off my card.
Yep,
I'm not, it was a huge step up at buyer figure,
and
20
I
points.
bet Love My Honey last time, and Love My Honey should have won that race. Like that. And so I'm seeing a lot of my horses that ran second come back, and I know that maybe the horses that beat them, if they got a bad ride or if it wasn't a great trip, like I just don't think Shaq Laka Laka was all that impressive. So yeah, we're similar. Like this feels like a good race in the pick 4 where maybe you could take a swing against it. And what's nice about Sam Houston, we've talked about it, with the low takeout in all of those exotic wagers. If I'm playing a pick 5 or a pick 4, I feel less nervous about getting knocked out and having to use a short price horse that I don't like, because, hey, I can go back and play a low takeout pick 3 right after, or a low takeout double right after. It's not like, some of those tracks, they'll have a 10% or 12% or 15% pick 5, and then their other wagers are 25%. This is like, it makes it so much nicer as a bettor. You can even just feel like you can be more aggressive. No reason to play those chalks that we don't love. Let's look for the off the pace horses in the third. Let's get to race number 4, Sam. We've got Texas bred maidens, fillies, 3-year-olds. So this is sort of that bottom type level here. They're going to go 6 furlongs, the distance. Where are you going to start?
So I think the interesting thing about this race is they are state bred maidens for $7,500 for 3-year-old fillies. There really aren't going to be any mid-level maiden claiming races for younger Texas breds until Lone Star. The reason is, if you have like a filly that you think should be in for maiden 20 or maiden 25, you're going to try to go for the $40,000 purse with the maiden special weight. So these are probably bottom of the barrel, and there would be better horses in a race like this if the purse here is 11,000. The purse for maiden special weights is almost 40.
Yeah,
so I think these really are kind of the bottom.
That don't even have a chance to sniff getting a piece of that bigger. That maiden special weight. Yeah.
So there's a couple horses I thought were interesting in here. I think the one, Not Enough Bling, I would be surprised if this one isn't on the lead. I'm just not sure, if this filly's going to be able to hold on. If this race was 5 furlongs instead of 6, I'd probably lean to that one. So I think I'm going to go to the outside horse, the 8, Efflorescence, maybe. Mm-hmm. It's a Danny Pish, Lane Luzzy. They've been having a pretty good meet. Danny's starting to heat up a little bit. Went back and watched the maiden 30 at Fairgrounds, which, that's a significantly tougher race than this. She just lost all chance at the start. She probably spotted the field, 5 or 6 lengths, made an okay move up the rail. Then the rider, I think, just kind of quit because she wasn't going to be in the top 3 that day. She got an okay speed figure for these, maiden 7,500s. It would have been better had she, not missed the break. Her speed figure would probably be there with 8-5 favorite. My Baby's Gone for Gustafson. This is another 8-5 favorite, or favorite that I'd probably play against. I went 2 back to the Open 7500 maiden race. Probably a little bit tougher, but this one had no excuse to lose that race whatsoever.
I loved her that day. That was her excuse.
Yeah, we talked, the first couple weeks of the Houston meet. If you were on the lead, you were, probably dead. And she got second to a horse that, just wired the field. A horse that's not that good. So, if she was going to win a race, that was the race to win. She's going to be the favorite. Austin's hitting at, 35%. His jockey said at 20%. I'd probably just look elsewhere. Maybe the 1 Not Enough Bling or the 8 for Danny Pish.
I'll give you one more too, because I don't love the 5 and I don't really love the 3 all that much either, who's dropping in class. This horse might be able to just fall into a spot. The 4, Witt's Girl. So she's lightly raced. She's only raced twice, and her debut you can completely toss. She got squeezed back. She missed the break. Last time out, she was 4th, 5th. She was in the second flight of horses. She was within a couple lengths though. She wasn't too far out of it, and it really wasn't that bad of an effort. She was kind of in between. She had some trouble, and then horses. She was 100-1 that day. When horses get like this at this low level, they don't have multiple gears. You get stopped or you get shuffled back, you're likely not going to be able to come on again. But she drops. She puts 2 starts together. Going to make her second start at Sam Houston, second time for the new barn. So. Yeah, I thought this horse on a quick wheel back is a bit interesting, and in a race that's not that great, she might be able to just fall into it. If you're looking to play against some of the short price horses, throw her on your pick 4 ticket too. You mentioned Not Enough Bling, who in a race like this, a lot of times the horses that just get the lead can open up, and nobody wants to just come past them because these horses have not been proven to be all that great. I think you have to use Efflorescence. Dam was a 3-time winner, couple winning siblings, two sibs, both of them won. She just might be an okay thing in a bad race. So, we see a lot of the similarities in that the favorites are not necessary again in this race. They don't feel like those standout favorites that we just kind of say, let's single and move along.
Yeah, I agree completely. But moving into this next race, I think there are a couple favorites that are going to be tough.
Yeah, so we got the 5 furlong turf sprint here. There's some interesting horses. So you got That's a Fact Jack, who will likely be showing some pace in here. You've got Sigur Ross, who comes in from Golden Gate, who's also very quick and has been in pretty good form as of late. There's a horse like Richard's Boy, who was your Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint runner-up a few years back, but is just won for his last 25, but he does come out of some decent races. There's some chalk here, and Richard's Boy I'm sure will probably get played a little bit more than the 8-1 that he is. He generally gets bet because people remember him off of some of those efforts. So who are you looking to key in on, or some of the horses you need in this pick 4 or whatever you're playing here?
So I would love for Richard's Boy to get bet. I think he probably probably needs to find a new career.
I agree.
That probably just they claim for 40, so they're probably trying to recoup a little bit of that, but I just not sure I see that happening. That's a Fact Jack looks like probably the speed of the speed in here, assuming this race stays on the turf. But one I thought was interesting was a 13 game loading.
Yep.
Mindy Willis has had this horse for a long time, got claimed one race, and she claimed it right back. And I think that was the first time the horse had been in for a tag in a long time. That wasn't $40,000. Like we were saying, there's a lot of speed in here, and this is kind of the one that I thought might have a chance to close. It is a pretty big field, so you might go for a few horses in here, especially if you don't like the favorites in the first couple horses in the first couple races. I think game loading is probably one I would put something maybe a win place bet on. I think you're going to get more than 9-2. I'd be pretty stunned if you didn't.
And I think you must use him because, like you said, there's questions about some of the other horses as far as the most sure closer in the race. I think you'll get him to come running. Are they going to go quick enough? That's going to depend on what a horse like Sigur Ross does and how quick that one is when trying to push That's a Fact Jack. But there's definitely versions of this race where those two go quick early on, and even one or two others tries to get involved, and we do have them going quick. I think if that's the case, the game loading is going to be very well meant, and the 10 is one that I'd also want to throw in there too. This is a horse who gets back on the grass. That August 22nd race is not that bad. Was kind of slowish from the rail and was settled in fifth, was a couple lengths off, moved in between horses, kind of got in tight, steadied, stayed to the inside, but the top couple had already separated. It's a little bit better than it looks on paper at first glance. This is a horse who actually has some pretty nice turf form. If you go back to last year, this one wasn't too far behind That's a Fact Jack and was actually good against 10 claimers. And That's a Fact Jack will always win a race against Texas Moneyman when That's a Fact Jack can get a lonely lead. Sure. So, it all depends on the trip in this race. If somebody pushes Jack, then I think the 10 has got a shot in here for a very capable barn. I had the 10 and the 13 along with the 5 as my sort of must-use horses in here. And then major question marks about the 11, probably a wild card that you like. If you're shortening up and you're against some of the chalk in the first couple races, I definitely would probably want to include Sigur Rós. I think Lucarelli will start warming up too, but I'm not sure from out there with like he's got to go, and so I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to clear the 5. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go 5 and 13. Have one on the lead and one closing.
Yeah,
I think That's a Fact Jack is probably the one to beat in here. He looks like the speed of the speed. Speed's been playing okay on the turf. There's just so much speed in that race. It's really hard to who's going to get the lead because of. I didn't really see any speed horses that, could re-rally or anything in there. They have to wire the field.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're either going to outrun them or it falls apart. If it does, the 13 is the most likely winner. 10 could be an interesting price horse that I'm going to use and throw into some of the exotics. Let's get to the late pick 4. We've got the Texas bred fillies and mares 4-year-olds and up, and we've got a horse who, if you weren't on the show, and I was just talking about this race myself, I would no doubt say that I do think Miss Aggie Bling, who had a very slow start, it was last of 9, and then had to make a really big wide move and was about 7 wide at the top of the lane, still ran really well for second. I would say Miss Aggie Bling is the one to beat in here. What do you think as the owner of this horse? You claimed this horse last time out and ran a good second. What did you think coming out of that race, and what do you think about this particular spot?
I think it's a really good spot for her. I think she probably is the one to beat. She's had a little bit more time with Danny and his team now. Kind of a quick turnaround from December 21st at Remington, shipping from Oklahoma to Houston, running a couple weeks later. There wasn't really a whole lot for Danny and his team to do there. He does like, runners that sit off the pace and close. So that was encouraging to see. She can, maybe not be 6 wide this time. I don't really blame Lane. It's kind of, he was kind of sitting there waiting to see if something opened up. It never did. So
it was that or nothing, right? Yeah, you make that kind of a move and you take a shot, or you just sit back there and you run like a non-threatening 4th.
Exactly. So, I don't blame him. Second in these $37,000 races can pay a lot of bills. I thought a couple, interesting. Miss Aggie Bling's going to be the one that I bet on. I'm not going to bet on any of these other ones, but Silver Coin, I thought she ran pretty well last out. I think that's one that I gave out to everyone.
Yep.
But the Texas bred 5,000 on 3s are just, they're terrible races. Metallic Silver, I thought was interesting. This is one that we were actually going to claim at Remington in December, but they scratched the horse, so we couldn't. Came back in here. She looks like she might actually set it up for my horse. But, if the speed doesn't carry, or the speed does carry, she can be interesting. Uptown Bling at Home, another one. I'm just not sure if she's quite good enough. Getting second in the allowance non-2, the Texas bred non-2 allowances are not as good as the 1X. I have a lot of difficulty finding someone other than my horse in here.
Yeah, I thought the 7 is probably going to be a single for me. I'll play 2 tickets probably. Or if you're looking for the underneath horses, you mentioned a couple that I was looking at. I thought the 2, I think Metallic Silver might be a little bit quicker than Uptown Bling at Home. And if not, I think that those 2 might have just a little, they might have a little bit of trouble on the win end. The other horse that intrigued me, that I think maybe could finish second here or could maybe surprise Zoe's Goal Lady, who she actually broke well and she was right with the leaders, but then she kind of ran into some traffic. She had a sneaky effort. She wasn't beaten all that much. She kind of held in there, but she just didn't really get an opportunity to run a whole lot. So if she were to get a better trip, I think she might be an interesting price horse to use along with the 7 Miss Aggie Bling, who could spice things up. I had him stacked 7, 4, 8 here with some question marks about the 5 who you mentioned, Silver Coin. But honestly, I do think Miss Aggie Bling is going to be really tough. If she can just sit a little bit closer, if she just doesn't break so poorly this time out, and sit a little bit more mid-pack, she'll be really, really tough to hold off in here. So good luck with Miss Aggie Bling in the 6, Sam.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's get to the late pick 3. Once Miss Aggie wins the 6th, we're going to have a lot of opportunity in the last couple races to get some prices to try to spice things up. So we got a 25 non-2 group going a mile and a 16th on the turf course here. Where do we start?
So this was an interesting race because, the 7th and the 9th race are basically the same race. I guess they just split it and, decided to run 2 portions of it. This one's interesting. So I think 5 horses in here come out of the same last race. I thought the 3 Battleship Bevo was interesting. He kind of, settled mid-pack, rallied 4 wide, ran okay. He gets a significant rider upgrade here. I know we weren't that high on Sophie to begin the meet. She's won 2 of her last 4 turf routes.
She's been just good. No, she's been a lot better.
She's been significantly better. I mean, the old jockey, Weston Hamilton, was 0 for 13 in his last turf races. I went back to his last 100 races. He was 13 races out of his last 100 on the turf. He won none of them. And he kind of looked like he was never really going to win a turf race.
Yeah.
All the horses in here are pretty similar. I thought maybe with a better trip, with a better jockey who's won on the turf, I thought Battleship Bevo at a price. I think he's probably going to be every bit of 12 to 1.
I agree.
Just because Larry Stroop, that he's not, a big name trainer in here. And Asmussen's in here with a 3 to 1. Stidham's in here on the rail. There's some bigger name trainers in here. I'd probably try to find someone at a price. And I think Battleship Bevo is the one I landed on.
I'll give you another one. I thought the 2, Cola. So Cola's going to add the blinkers. Let's look at Cola's only 2 races on the grass. The November 6th race, fine start, settled 3rd, 4th, was in the 2-path, was a couple lengths off, ended up finishing 3rd that day behind Moorhawk. Moorhawk has come here and run twice at the meet, finished 3rd against 25 non-3s and finished 2nd against 15 non-3s. So, not a bad measuring stick type horse to use. The other race was beaten just a neck last year here against Open Company, against the optional 50 non-2s here at Sam Houston, only beaten a neck. That was a really good race at almost 50 to 1 that day. Adds the blinkers. I think this is a horse who can carve out a really nice trip, maybe saving some ground. Bronx Rumble and Bourbon Wisdom, they were battling early on, going long last time out, and they're both back in here. And either one of them could win, but I don't necessarily love or need either one of them. I guess I give a little bit more of an excuse to Bronx Rumble because he hadn't raced since April, so he could have really needed the race, and maybe he steps forward. He'll be a little fitter with that race under his belt. He could save some ground here, so I'd probably prefer him than the Asmussen. The 4 did have some legitimate trouble last time out for Scholl, with Luzzy. They had no speed. They were at the back, and someone moved before him. He sort of just got caught in a blind switch, and he ended up legitimately 10 lengths off and came close, and he did pretty well. I'm not that high on either. Like I said, I'd lean 1 over the 9 if you want to use those short price horses. I don't necessarily need the 8 venture forth. The 7 I'm okay with, maybe throwing trade deadline in, who comes in from Tampa. So I had him stacked 2, 4, 7, and then underneath them I had the horse you mentioned, the 3 with the 2 favorites, the 1 and the 9 is the 3. I sort of agree. Like we said, so we're gonna call it like we see it. Sophie had a really bad first couple weeks, and she's been really good. She's been aggressive. Yep. You and I were talking about it too. She's just gotten a little bit more assertive with the rides and said, okay, you know what? I'm on a horse that I think's the best horse here. I'm going to get aggressive with them. I'm going to place them in a good spot. And she's definitely riding with some confidence right now. And I think this is a big switch. So couple races here throughout the day that even more than looking at a race, Sam, and knowing there's a 15 or 20 to 1 shot that you love, sometimes it's better when there are 3 or 4 races throughout the card where they're just favorites that you don't love and you don't need.
Yeah, definitely. I guess Asmussen's the favorite in here, 3 to 1. He claimed the horse in, 6 months ago in June. And just look at all the asterisks. He's been favored in 8 of the 9 starts and won 1. So, he's just a money burner. So, if that's the case, find another one you like in here. And I mean, he's probably going to be favored again. Steve's favored in a lot of these races. And I mean, he loses a lot of them that he's favored. He wins at 25%. He's probably favored more than that.
Let's get to the late daily double. Race number 8 at Sam Houston. 5,000 claimers, non-winners of 3. Mile here on the main track. This one I thought was pretty difficult. So Midnight War, I'd imagine, will take a good amount of money here coming off the runner-up effort, and Stretching Out will probably be the one to catch in here. Asmussen's got another big dropper who he claimed for 10 a couple starts back and is now in for 5 and just has not been in very good form as of late. Those two will probably take a lot of the action in here. Do you need either one of them? Are you looking at them and some others? How do you approach this 8th?
I like the 1A in here, Toa. Willing to throw out the last race. There's a couple horses I really liked in there. Run Tech, Dias. Both of those horses would absolutely crush anyone in this field. So him getting crushed by those horses, I mean, all these other horses are going to get crushed too. So if you throw out that last race, I mean, he probably looks like he would be the favorite in here, but now he's 6-1. I think he's shown the ability to sit off the pace and close a little bit. And you talked about the 4 Midnight War Stretching Out, Arch Rival Stretching Out. There's a couple in here that have never gone 2 turns, so they're probably going to be a little bit quicker. It might actually set it up for someone like Toa, who he can either be on the lead or sit off of it, so he can just kind of sit, in third and then close. Hopefully those horses that are stretching out get a little bit tired. I mean, stretching out from 5 furlongs, 5.5 furlongs to go a mile, I mean, that's pretty significant, stretch out in here. And this is a really tough race for 5,000 on 3. Usually there's one in here in a race like this that, wow, I think this one's just going to lay over this field. This one's pretty tough. There's another Asmussen at 7-2 who's the favorite. I think he's probably going to lose the race. So if you can find another one here that you like, it's going to pay off, especially in the multi-leg wagers. So I think Toa is probably the one I'm going to lean to in here. If you can get past that last race where he lost to Run Tech, a horse I liked a lot, all those other races fit in here.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have a lot of the same handicapping angles that you just had with the different horse, the 3, Clifton Park. So he's coming out of the Run Tech races too. And I think we have a total excuse for him last time out. That was on an off racetrack. And his 2 races on an off track have not been very good. So just put a line right through that. Look at his 2 races prior to that. At Remington against the 75 non-3s. Those are not bad at all. He was actually right behind Run Tech where Run Tech was 3rd, and he finished 4th that day. And Clifton Park has that same sort of running style that we were talking about with Toa. He's not quite as quick as Toa, but he's definitely a tracker who can be sitting 3rd or 4th, not too far off, saving some ground down on the inside. You just put a line through that last race, and the form does look a lot better. You can cross out the 25 non-3 on the grass. That was too tough. Now you got a string of pretty nice races for a horse who could be forgotten about. Same type of thing, because these aren't top-notch connections that necessarily win a whole ton. Sneaky horse in here that could be around 10-1 that you could throw into your late pick 4s. Clifton Park, it completely excused that last race and give him a shot off the form prior to that. You mentioned the 4 Stretching Out. What are you going to do with them? I don't need the 7. He continues to drop. I don't like that. The 8 was an interesting horse to me because he was favored last time on the drop, but when the Diodoro horses start going bad, a lot of times they end up being kind of tough to turn their form around. So the only positive is that this would be a horse that's a price, but we just generally don't see them sort of wake back up for a new barn like this right away.
100%. I agree with you totally. And I think I think we had the exact same angle. We just ended up on different horses.
Exactly.
So I think we saw the race the same. We just ended up on different ones.
Yep. Another one that I would maybe like the 2 Queens Red Boy, if you're going a little bit deeper. If you get back to some of those races on the dirt last year, they're not bad, actually. Some of the races at Lone Star and even the race here at Sam Houston against the 5 non-2s when finishing 4th, that race is okay. If you're digging a little bit and you're trying to play against some of the short prices, that would be one. But Sorensen's continue to struggle. He's just like 1 for about 30 plus, as at the time of we're recording this. So, you kind of take what you get sometimes.
And he just lost on a 2-5 favorite in the first race at Sam Houston today. One thing I'll note about Queen's Red Boy, Desmond Fogarty, he's actually one of Danny's assistants. So if you're saying, oh, I don't know who that guy is, you're probably getting a little bit of Danny Pish influence there. So if you like Danny's horses and you see Desmond, keep that in mind.
Cool. Good note. Good note there. Let's close it out in race number 9 at Sam Houston on Saturday night. Big thanks to Sam Sherman for helping us out here navigate this Saturday night card one more time. We are up to the 9th. We have 25 non-2 claimers here, a mile and a 16th. You mentioned this is sort of a split of the race that we were just looking at a couple back. I don't think they could run a field of 18 to 20 because both of these things filled up. So we ended up getting 2, nice betting races. The horse that on paper is 2-1 and will take a ton of money is going to be Uncle Artie, who beat maiden special weights for the very hot Gustafsson Martin. That was back in October, so we haven't seen him since. That was at Remington. He's now in for a tag today. Do you need him? Is he a single? Do you play against him? There's also going to be a short price horse right next door for Asmussen.
Yeah, so no, I don't think I need Uncle Artie. I mean, his speed figure that day really, really jumped up. So I mean, is he that horse? Or is he like, the races that preceded that? I'm going to lean towards probably the ones that preceded that. The one I kind of liked in here is Flexati, who was in that race we talked about, in the race that preceded this. That's the same one. He was in against those other 5 horses. I thought that he ran a winning race that day. He just got beat by a better horse. He lost by length and a half. That horse was always going to win. It exploded. He beat the rest of the field by a length and a half, which, on the turf, it's a pretty significant, mount there. I'm just going to throw out the allowance race. He's probably not good enough to win the allowance.
Yeah, that was just too tough.
I understand why they tried it. Ran a good race, got second. That's probably the one I'm going to lean on, the 6, Flexati. The Asmussen horse, people think that stepping up from 15 non-2 at the fairgrounds to 25 non-3 in Houston is, those probably similar races. I don't know that they are. These lower level claiming horses that never were able to win an allowance or win 2 races, they're all kind of just the same all around the country. And that horse didn't do anything. And Uncle Artie's never been in against winners, and it took him 13 tries to break his maiden, and he's been off for 4 or 5 months now. Flexati's the one I like in here, and I couldn't really find another one. I'm probably going to, single him in the last leg if I play a late pick 4, pick 5. I think he's the one to beat in here. I think you're going to get every bit of 4-1, probably better, just because like we were talking about with Gustafsson and Steve having short prices in here, those are going to be the ones that people gravitate towards.
I have a top 2 and then a question mark with the 8, who, I think I'd prefer the 8 over the 9. I think if I was going to use one of the 2 of them. But I need Flexati everywhere. I'll have Flexati on all my tickets. I thought the 3, Violent Behavior, at first glance, I generally don't like playing horses like this who are 1 for whatever, but he's only raced on the grass twice. And just from first glance, there's not a lot of speed. Then you start digging into it. There really are not that many horses who want to be on the front end or want to be forwardly placed. And we know with Luzzy, they get aggressive. That's got to be the game plan with the horse who has shown that he doesn't really want to pass horses. He was close going 5 furlongs, 2 starts back. He was within a length of that early pace. So I think it's got to be, hey, let's send this horse. Let's try to play catch me if you can. And let's just hope that we can get brave in this type of a field. So I'm going to use Violent Behavior all over the place. I think Flexati will probably be tracking not too far behind Violent Behavior. And I wouldn't be shocked if there's not a whole ton of passing in here. Uncle Artie, what do you want to do with him? I don't need Days of Glory. And how about Rick's Raider, who came off of a layoff? He hadn't run from May of 2016 to January of 2021. So at the very least, we could say he probably needed that last race, Sam.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I don't even know how you get a horse back to the races who's been off for 5 years.
I don't either.
Wow. Yeah, that's one that will not be on any of my tickets. I can tell you that.
So Rick's Raider will try to go second off the long layoff, one of the longer layoffs you will ever see there. But Flexati on both of our tickets for sure. I'll throw Violent Behavior on, once you get past them, I could make maybe a little bit of a case for underneath spots, and if you're trying to go bust out long shots and you want to be closing a ticket with a couple bombs, Ryder Rocket actually has some okay turf races to go back to at Louisiana Downs. That was a long time ago. But and Mr. Strange, who, you can find some decent grass races for Mr. Strange too. So if I was looking for bust out long shots to use underneath some, it would be those. But no doubt, Violent Behavior, Flexati, and I'll probably have Uncle Artie as sort of like the top tier for me here to close things out, Sam. So let's get Miss Aggie home and we'll be able to key in a lot of exotics around that, and that would be a great way for you to start your week on Wednesday with the Insurrection and to end it on Saturday there with Miss Aggie.
Oh man, I mean, if I could claim that horse for $7,500 and win a $38,000 race in 2 months, that would really be awesome. I think, the theme of the card with talking to you is there's a lot of short priced horses in this field that can be beat. So I would dig into the card. I think you can find, a couple horses in those races you can get paid off.
Sam, it's been a really good start to the meet for you as far as your gambling, your handicapping. We really appreciate all the help you've given us here on That's What G Said. You're a lot of fun to follow on social media there on Twitter. You post a lot of your thoughts throughout the cards, horses that you're playing, all the updates on the queso, everything happening. Even if you give out a bad horse, you're going to take the brunt of it for us and go take a shot or two and just suck it up and feel the pain. So you're a lot of fun to follow, and we've had a lot of fun getting to know you over the last couple months here. Thanks for all your help, and let's keep it rolling, man. I love seeing you cash tickets. I love seeing those big vouchers pop up, and I want to see another winner for you this weekend.
Thanks, man. I'll be there on Saturday, and I plan on taking plenty of ammunition to fire at some of these races.
There we go. Sam Sherman there. What's the Twitter handle one more time so we can follow along with you?
So it's at Sherman_Sam on Twitter.
Sam, thank you so much, buddy. We'll get you back here in the next week or two so we can do this all again. The fans love having you on here. You give us some great insight. The local races like so few others do, and you have been sharp, seeing the ball well. Thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks, Gino. Appreciate it.
Sam Sherman here. Very lucky to have him on That's What G Said. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. Just going to take a quick break. Could be a really nice night on Saturday at Sam Houston. Sam and I think there are plenty of vulnerable favorites throughout the card. A big thanks to Sam and all the great handicapping he does, and he's been helping us out so much over the last couple weeks here on That's What G Said podcast. Before we get into Wrestling with Chad Cooper, we got to talk about one of our sponsors, one of the longtime sponsors. You heard her on That's What G Said a few weeks back, Cindy Carava. One of the most difficult events and stressful events in life is moving. Everything that goes into that process, relocating, all the different factors that you have to worry about. Cindy Carava is going to make your life easier. CindyCarava.com. That's the website. She is the wife of former horse racing trainer Jack Carava, who's been a mainstay on the Southern California racing circuit for the last 30 years or so. And for a full-service realtor, that means she can help you in many different ways. Selling, purchasing, leasing. She can help connect you with vendors like handyman, painters, landscapers, or gardeners that she's personally used in her own home. Maybe you need help getting pre-approved for a loan. She can connect you with a lender that she works closely with and can highly recommend. She covers all parts of the San Gabriel Valley, North San Diego County, Del Mar, Solana Beach, Rancho Santa Fe. But if you are in another state, she can also help you out. Contact her. She'll put you in touch with someone who can do work there for you, for her, find you whatever you need in your price range. Maybe you're just curious to see how much your home is worth. Yep, she can do that for you too. Free market analysis of your home's value. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, reviews about her on Yelp and Zillow, or CindyCarava.com. That's where you can get all of the information there. Carava. I've known Cindy personally for over a decade. She is one of the nicest, most honest, and genuine people you will ever meet. She'll tell you exactly what you need to hear, and she's going to help you get the most perfect home in any way that you need. CindyCarava.com. Make sure to let her know that Gino sent you. Let's get into our final segment. This week, it's Wrestling with Chad Cooper. We're going to head to WWE Raw, SmackDown, All Elite Wrestling for Dynamite, and NXT. We take a little look at the card for the NXT pay-per-view coming up this weekend. It's Wrestling with Chad Cooper.
Here it is, folks. Fight of the night. And trying to claim that belt once and for all, it's this week's Wrestling Recap. All right, calm down. And here he is, your hometown hero, your reigning champ, the one and only Chad Cooper.
Chainsaw Charlie here recording, as you could hear right as we're getting started to record with Chad. I got the gardeners outside, but it's Terry Funk, Chad. It's Chainsaw Charlie, and he's here. We were just talking about what went on in the last week or so. Definitely a much different week than the week that we discussed last week when we were coming off the heels of the Royal Rumble. AEW had a big surprise with Kenta there. This week was sort of a ho-hum week, I'd say. Nothing too crazy. We had Edge kind of making his rounds. He went over to SmackDown. I think big picture from what it seems with the announcement that the Elimination Chamber is going to be involving the guys on Monday Night Raw, I'd imagine we're going to see Edge end up taking on Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and it felt like him and Roman was, even though, Edge is is an old veteran, it's been around for a long, long time. It felt refreshing last Friday night to kind of see Roman and Edge we haven't seen before.
Just standing next. All it takes is just standing across from each other.
That's it. Yeah, I cannot get excited with Edge and Drew or whoever wins the Elimination Chamber, which will probably be Drew. But I can buy what WWE is selling with Edge and Roman Reigns. Believe it or not, I kind of got into it.
I like this. We got the spear versus spear. Edge has always felt like a WWE guy, and this is the best use, I think, of Edge with Roman. And it really feels like it's going to be it feels like a WrestleMania match, right? When we look around at all the other matches that they could possibly put together, this is about as big as what they have.
Yeah, if you look on the SmackDown roster, I'm sure there's someone we could find on there that would be great with Roman. But Edge and Drew, it doesn't really take that. And Roman has been elevated. This is the best Roman.
Yes,
I know Roman was fantastic in the Shield, This is
who we wanted all along.
Yeah, this is it. And Paul Heyman just puts icing on the cake. This, the
ratings are great too. Like, people are watching SmackDown because there's a few other good things going on. Like, Daniel Bryan's doing good work with people. Sasha's been good, but people are watching and taking notice on SmackDown because of Roman Reigns.
100%. And you can hate on the guy all you want to. But what he's been able to do since his return, beating cancer and during this pandemic has been phenomenal. I think he said over the last week or two, he would love to work his entire career with Paul Heyman. So that shows you how much respect he has for Paul. And it's just really good. And with Uso by his side and now with Edge is, climbing that uphill battle, there's no way you can beat Roman Reigns. This is definitely a main event storyline build we can get for WrestleMania. I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Me too. I think it feels really good. And then on the women's side, it does sort of feel like the right match is Bianca-Sasha too. Yeah. Them standing next to each other and both kind of getting to play a little bit of their cocky side, but Bianca playing more of the babyface cocky, and then Sasha can be more of the heel boss in this feud. I think this is probably going to be the best use of both of them.
Yeah. Asuka, I'm sure they would put on a great match. But this is what we want to see. This is the feud we want to see. And it's funny how Raw has been the quote unquote flagship, the 3-hour show, and USA Network. It's a staple. It's been there. Isn't it just weird how SmackDown is just better? And
it's not even close, to be honest.
We're talking more about the potential or 2 big WrestleMania matches are on that brand now.
It's not even close right now. No. And it's been that way for the last 5 years. There was when Shane and Daniel Bryan were the commissioners over there on SmackDown, it was great. When we had all the Talking Smack stuff, it was great. There was a little bit of a lull for a while, but then ever since Roman has come back, they've been awesome again. For the better part of 5 years, that's been the better show. That's felt like the bigger show. And honestly, Chad, I think some of it has to do with the fact that it's the 2 hours versus the 3. I really think that they're able to put so much more good, not bad stuff in that 2-hour show. Like, just going through it real quickly. I mean, you got Mysterio, Corbin stuff, that was fine. You got Big E stuff is really good that they're doing right now on SmackDown. The Sasha story that they're telling is really good. At least in the tag team division, we're getting like Rude and Ziggler, which is sort of something a little bit new. It doesn't feel like we're getting the same matches over and over. So you can make a little list of 4 or 5 things that you like, and then the best thing going in the entire company all on SmackDown. That isn't the case when we shift over to Monday Night Raw. We'll talk a little bit about last week's episode. I don't think Shane McMahon showing up there was a coincidence, Chad.
No.
And that's what makes me really worried about this Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. In my head, what I'm seeing is Drew McIntyre losing that match, losing the title, and him getting pissed off at Shane and saying, "You're the reason why I lost this," and then we get a Shane versus Drew match at WrestleMania, which I'm okay with that. There are 2 things I don't want, though. I don't want Shane in a title match, because I don't think we really believe Shane's going to win the title, so I don't like that. I'm fine if Shane's in a match with someone and he's going to do his Shane thing and he's going to have his spot or 2. The second problem I have is I don't think there's really anyone in this Elimination Chamber that feels all that primed to win the title. So if Drew loses, is it going to be to someone who's not really hot and not really set up all that well moving forward? It just felt to me that Shane being there was weird, right?
Yeah, this is not a one-time gig. I was right on with you, and it kind of feels like to me that, yeah, Drew's popular. We're going on about a year now, right, with the belt. He won it at WrestleMania last year, so we're going on about a year, which is that's what happens with WWE World Champions. They'll hold it for that long. It feels like to me that they're not giving up on him, but does Drew need the title? And it kind of feels like to me is I think that we might see Sheamus win this title.
We might.
Chamber.
And
I'm a betting man, and right now I'm putting my money on Sheamus. Not
because you look at the rest of the field. Hardy's not winning the title.
Not winning it. No.
Miz doesn't need to win the Elimination Chamber, but this is sort of like the Royal Rumble. If you told me at the end of the night somehow the Miz had the title, it would make sense from a he's got the briefcase. It really wouldn't make sense as Miz being the champ right now. He has not been booked anything close to what a top guy champ should be booked like. But we also got to remember, Chad, that after Elimination Chamber, there's another pay-per-view. Right. Fastlane. That is going to be the WWE's first pay-per-view on the Peacock streaming service. So they actually do have time to somehow get the title from Sheamus to somebody else, even if they wanted it to go from Sheamus to maybe a Keith Lee, who's going to be in a U.S. title match this weekend. I don't know. I'm just thinking somebody. There's still a lot of time to do so. That Shane showing up, like if he's not going to be involved, they just have Adam Pearce announce that Shane doesn't show up. It wouldn't have made any sense.
100%. And for WrestleMania, you're going to need some people to come back that we haven't seen in a while. Shane is good for 1 or 2 of those type matches. Him and Drew, they'll be jumping off of stuff. There'll be all sorts of that. I could see that definitely playing out. You bring up a good point with the switch over from the WWE network, which was purchased by Peacock. And, who's down the road, I think all of us feel like that, Peacock, NBC, Universal will probably be the one that owns the WWE one day. That's what it looks like. But for that to be their first pay-per-view, Peacock is going to go all out for this first one, right? And to have a new champion or to have Sheamus win it, then lose it back at Fastlane, I don't know if that would I'm not sure the way they're going, but it looks like they're about to make a move, and I think they're going to take the title off Drew. Would I be surprised if they didn't? No, but they've planted something with Shane to say, okay, we're about to make a move, and I feel like that's going to happen.
They tipped their hand with Shane. We've been seeing this storyline from a while. We haven't really loved what's been going on with Charlotte, with Lacey, with Ric Flair, but Lacey is going to get a title shot now. They're not going to have this version of Lacey win the title and Lacey versus Charlotte at Mania, are they?
You know what? look, I love Lacey. I've been one of her biggest fans since day one. I love the gimmick. I love her story. She served this country. I love what she does. She lives in the country. She grows and raises her own food. I love it. That match on Monday night with her and Charlotte was terrible. Absolutely terrible. It was stiff. There's just no continuity.
No chemistry with those two at all.
No, Ric Flair looked lost on the outside, and then we get a DQ, and then she gets, Lacey's gets put in the match anyway. I just hope it's one of these crossover type matches. There's no way. But on the other side of it, playing devil's advocate, I mean, we've got Mania coming up. We're not going Charlotte, Asuka, are we again? I mean, who on that roster? I mean,
right.
Bianca.
I could see them doing Charlotte, Lacey, and then having Asuka wrestle like Alexa.
Sure.
And
I was disappointed that Alexa, again, we killed her off right in the Royal Rumble, I guess, and she's not on Raw. Hello?
What's going on?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's very disappointing. Very disappointing. I was not happy. I was not sold this Monday night. And I'm usually a WWE big fan. I was not happy with Monday Night Raw.
Me neither.
It wasn't there. It wasn't there for me.
Completely agree. It didn't hit home for me. We did see some Miz Edge. Maybe that's like a match at Fastlane, or maybe we get Christian in the mix and we get like Miz and Morrison against Ed and Christian at one of these in between pay-per-views. I'd be fine with that as like a placeholder, and maybe just keep getting Edge a little more work in the ring along the way to Mania.
Yeah, I don't think Christian's appearance in the Royal Rumble was a one-time deal. I think it was cleared. Why not bring him back for a couple of these sideshow matches, these tentpole type events? Absolutely, I'm down with that.
And hey, the feud that never ends. But we got an addition to it. At least Keith Lee is going to be in the mix. So Keith Lee versus Keith Lee versus Riddle versus Lashley is going to be one of the matches at Elimination Chamber. Is this a triple threat? Maybe just to give Keith Lee a way to beat Riddle and to not have Lashley get pinned, and maybe that gets the title on Keith Lee, and we set up like a Keith Lee Lashley for Mania. I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Keith Lee and Riddle was a hell of a match. That was, I've seen them go at it at NXT, and it's Keith Lee, Lashley. You can tell it's there. Two big guys who can go. Lashley needs somebody like Keith Lee. He's so much bigger than everybody else, and it's hard to work a program with him. Riddle's bigger. Yeah, it kind of feels forced, but Keith Lee and Bobby Lashley is something I'd buy a ticket to. Absolutely.
And we got one of the infamous lines from Monday night. My hole!
Oh, jeez.
What the heck was this? So Lana gets her win back against Nia Jax. It's a tables match. And there's one spot where Nia goes to drop the leg on Lana on the apron, and she moves, and she says after, as she holds her backside, my hole!
I don't know if that was planned. I don't know if that was approved. I don't know. It blew up on social media. People are, here we are 2 or 3 days later. We're still talking about my hole. I'm over it. It was funny. I'm like, okay, but it's slapstick. It was just weird. It was weird.
I agree. I thought the same thing like you. Like, did somebody tell her to say this, or is she just doing this on her own? That was my first thing. Like, somebody in the back is making her like hold her butt and say my hole, or is that a totally Nia thing? I don't know, but it just felt so out of place. It just was so weird. Like, I just had to, something we had to mention, no doubt about it. Raw ends with Sheamus interrupting the Randy Orton Drew McIntyre match with the Claymore. So we know that the Elimination Chamber is.
Gino, I don't look. This is the part that frustrates me. We're just throwing. Randy Orton is one of the best. Are we just throwing? That's why it feels like to me that they don't know what to do with McIntyre right now with the title. So I just didn't understand that. I'm okay with the match. I'm okay with what happened. With WWE, the big thing about them is the way they pull off storylines, and I love it. And this just feels like to me with Shane having to come in, Orton again.
They got no idea what they're doing right now. That's
they
the problem.
They don't.
Yeah.
With Drew And that's scary because he's such a big name and such the title, and it just felt like I didn't like it. Something's got to change here because they're just kind of flopping in the wind a little bit to me.
Yeah, I agree. The comparison between SmackDown and Monday Night Raw was like night and day.
Oh, yeah.
For as far like how I felt after the show. Over on Wednesday night, we had AEW as they're building for a big show about a month away from now. We had a match with Darby Allin winning. It was good to see him on TV, Joey Janela, and him go crazy for about 10 minutes. He picks up the victory there. And then later in the show, as they continue to build the Sting and Darby versus Team Taz stuff, we got Sting come out again, and as he's getting ready to say nothing again, he gets interrupted by Team Taz. So last week, we had a kidnapping. This week, we had a guy put in a body bag like early Undertaker, and they dragged him across the parking lot. This was intense, man.
You know what? Going back to the match with Darby and Joey, I dug it.
I love the match. I did too.
This is AEW, okay? This is what these guys were signed for. Darby, especially Joey, were two huge names on the independent circuit, underground. They're working all these promotions, these crazy spots, crazy shows. This is what AEW was supposed to look like for me. This is the direction I thought they were going in. So at least, at the first.
I think they should still. It should
be
still more of a variety show in that, like, they don't want to. If they don't want to go all this, that's fine. But there should always be something like this. This is where your fans are your fans because of this type of thing. This is what a lot of the fan base wants to see.
Yeah, and don't wait another 2 months to bring Joey back on TV. And I'm okay with the body bag deal. It was kind of bizarre, Lucha Underground, Triple A-esque. I'm okay with that. But looking forward to next week is like, okay, I saw an ad, a promo for next week's AEW Dynamite is Sting will confront Team Taz. And I'm like, we've been confronting Team Taz for this match coming up at their pay-per-view on March 7th. Better be one hell of a match.
It really
That's
should.
all I know,
people are going to be because they've. It's unfortunate. It's like when you build something up so much and for so long that if it doesn't deliver, it's going to feel really flat.
Yes,
we're going to feel really disappointed because we've been seeing Sting out there and they've been building this up. It feels like it's like a world title match for Sting, which we didn't want, know. But the build up to it feels so big because Sting is going to be back in the ring. Yeah, I again, I don't like most of this episode. I don't think was bad. But it just, I don't know, like when I see other people and how they respond to AEW, I don't respond that same way all the time.
No.
And I don't know if it's, like, there are some things that I absolutely love. And like this MJF stuff is incredible.
Oh, it's great. It's
like
incredible.
The MJF Jericho stuff and Sammy. I absolutely love this. And even the main event stuff with Omega, with Moxley, and with Kenta coming in, I like it. I enjoy it quite a bit. I think there's just a lot of stuff in the middle of the card and a lot of in-between stuff that I'm just kind of okay with. The MJF stuff though, so he starts recording Sammy as they have a conversation. He kind of baits Sammy into saying that he wants to take over the inner circle and that he hates Jericho. and then Sammy goes after it, gets him in the belly a few times. So MJF is selling the ribs. He's got the taped up stomach. He goes and tells Jericho. All of this leads to Sammy Guevara eventually saying, you know what? I told you if one more thing happened, I was going to leave. I said that in December. Things have happened. I'm out. And Sammy sort of even like a small thing, he walked out like in the good guy exit, like the way that the baby faces walk out. It was almost like this guy is making a face turn right here, And so I think Sammy will be a good hot baby face. With like the right timing. I think he should be gone for a few weeks, and he should show, if he's going to show back up, it should be in a month at that big show when Jericho and MJF get their title shot.
This storyline has been the best thing, in my opinion, that AEW had. It's just entertaining from day one, and now we're starting. The inner circle is just starting to fall apart, and Sammy kind of felt like, okay, I understand why you're putting him in the inner circle. A lot of the mainstream May not know who he is. Big, again, a big indie guy that was really, really popular, especially here in Texas. A lot of 300, 400, 500 sold out gymnasiums to watch this kid work, right? So I understand you kind of put him, it puts him in the, in the thick of things, so to speak, with Jericho in a name. You get to see him every week. But now is the time to kind of break him away. And they did it. This was the right thing to do. He walks away, clean slate. And yes, I think he needs to get involved in that title match. Absolutely.
We got Lee Johnson getting some love here in a big push, and he was laying it on just a little too thick for me to think that he's not going to turn on Cody soon. Just thanking Cody and Dustin,
0-29 or 0-21 for the year,
and Arn and Brandy. Thank you all so much. Yeah, this was funny. For a guy that we see on Dark a lot, they gave him a moment to shine, which is kind of cool. I think that he'll be turning heel, doing something sometime soon. We a little bit from the Bucks, nothing special. They were just kind of promo talking about everything that's going on with the Good Brothers, with MJF and Jericho, who they'll be facing soon. I did get a laugh at the stuff with Adam Page and Matt Hardy.
Was good.
That was pretty good. It was drinking. Matt Hardy knows that he's got to try if he wants to get to infiltrate Page. He's got to get him drunk to try to get him to sign the paper. He says he's going to make him a billionaire, and he says which is funny. Not like I'm going to make you millions, billions, and so I like, this is sort of a week-to-week thing for me. At the beginning, I was a little hesitant, but you know what? I think this is a fine use of Matt Hardy. I don't mind this. I like Page kind of having his own storyline here. You and I have talked about how much we love him, and so this is cool. Like, this is a little something different. This is funny. This is like Austin-y or James Storm-ish, which I really like.
Yeah, and, look, Matt Hardy is not the same Matt Hardy he was 10 years ago. We're not going to see the Delete character anymore. That's over. I like the way this has gone. Matt is very entertaining. If you followed him on social media, his YouTube stuff from the Hardy compound, everything has been really entertaining. And I like the segment. I love the line, sign this now because you're not going to remember tomorrow the 30% that you owe me out of this deal. I thought it was just a great segment, and it keeps Hangman in the thick of things, and Hardy being comical. I can watch that all day.
Me too. It's good. We got MJF and Jericho versus the Acclaimed. I'll tell you, the Acclaimed are young dudes, but they're studs. There's something there. They come out with the John Cena rapping gimmick, which some of the lines are really funny. Some of them are completely missed, but they got a little something there, and you could tell they like these guys because they're starting to get more and more TV time right now. As expected, Jericho and MJF get the win, and then we saw Sammy, which we were talking about afterwards. That's when he decided to turn his back on them, and he leaves and says he's out of the inner circle now. What did you think of the Omega golfing stuff? I didn't mind it. It was, again, like the different things that are a little outside the box when they do the vignettes and stuff. I actually think they do a pretty good job with some of these vignettes. They're not bad. They're sort of creative. Like, I don't want to see this every single week, but it's like Kenny's playing the heel character pretty well.
Yeah, and I like that about Omega. It's as you said, I don't want to see it each and every week, but you do get to see another side of a character on TV, because there's a lot of us who are not going to spend hours of the day watching Kenny Omega on BTE or some New Japan stuff. So, for a mainstream wrestling fan who's going to stop and watch TNT and watch this, I'm okay with seeing the other side of the cleaner. I'm okay with it. I am. Yeah. I really am.
Me. We got the women, Thunder Rosa, who you and I like a little bit, Layla Hirsch. To be honest, these are probably two of the better women that they've been showcasing right behind Britt. And they mentioned that they're going to be showing the women's, I think the Japan side of the women's tournament on YouTube next week on Monday. So if you're a hardcore fan and you're doing something on Monday at 7 Eastern, you can throw that up on YouTube and watch it in the background as you're doing some work. But Thunder Rosa gets the win, it feels like they'll probably continue to build up another match with Thunder Rosa and Britt, I think, because they have some good chemistry, and they had a good one a few weeks back.
Yeah, I was able to see Layla Hirsch.
She's great.
It may have been last year before the pandemic kicked in. Yeah, it could have been late 2019. Nonetheless, she's good, and she's got a different look about her, and she's got an interesting storyline, and she's been a part of AEW Dark for a while, and it's good to see, not to go back to the Acclaim, but, they signed the Acclaim. There's a hot Midwest tag team on the indie scene. They didn't stay on Dark very long because they're really, really good. And what's happening with Layla is she's been having some really good matches on AEW Dark. And to see her each and every week on Dynamite, I'm okay with, because I'm a big fan of her.
She's getting herself over.
Yeah.
There's nothing negative that anybody ever says about her. After every one of her matches, if you on social media and stuff, everybody gets more and more impressed with her. They keep comparing her to Taz. They think
strong, man.
Yeah, everyone. I've seen a few different people say, I'd love for her to get to be like the female in Team Taz and be just kind of like this badass, like bowling ball kind of female who's just got sort of the same short, stout stature as Taz, and she can maybe just work like just a total badass. So that would be cool. I like her. I like her a lot. Every time she's on there are not Britt, Layla, Thunder Rosa. There are only about 4 or 5, I think, that I really enjoy seeing right now, the way that they work and the way that they've been built in that women's roster.
100%. And if you can build on these girls and have them on and work programs and not have to search for them on YouTube, then I think they can have a legit women's division with these. Like as we said last week, Britt needs to have that title, but you don't let them go off TV for 2 or 3 weeks and bring
out of sight, out of mind. People forget about them.
Don't. What's good today is not necessarily good tomorrow. So keep them on, keep them fresh. I thought that was a pleasant surprise to have that match on TV as a part of the tournament.
As far as the ring work was concerned, the main event was excellent. You have Omega and Kenta versus Mox and Archer, and I did love what they seem to be trying to do right now is make Archer look strong. They had a point of saying it took 4 guys to get Archer down. They ended up getting the V trigger on him with Gallows and Anderson help lifting him up. Kenta looked as good as I can remember Kenta / Hideo Itami looking. He seemed very excited to be kind of getting the chance to show himself here on US TV. I think he's probably a little disappointed with what happened with his WWE NXT run. He kept getting hurt. He didn't really get the push because of that, and he ended up leaving. So I'm sure he's a little motivated in a spot like this to show what he has. This was fine. This was good. Like we said, the only thing, and it's not a problem I have with this moving forward, is that who is this getting over?
Right.
If it's Archer, then I'm fine with that. Like if you're gonna make Archer sort of like the next guy to go after Kenny, and he's the one that's kind of becoming a star here, then I'm okay with that. But if this makes Kenta look great, but what does that do for AEW?
Not a whole lot, in my opinion. I would think this as of right now, after watching the main event, Archer is the guy that looks really, really strong to me.
I agree.
And I was not the biggest Lance Archer fan. This is a Texas guy. Didn't get to see him a whole lot in person. Knew a lot about him. Seen some videos about him. I understand you put him with Jake Roberts, again, trying to get these people over with the mainstream, crowd.
Jake with the short clothesline, they were going to V-trigger Jake.
Yes, I know, So I understand. I think sometimes you think too much into it and say, okay, we got to put this guy with somebody to get him over. I don't think you really necessarily have to do that, but it worked out with Archer, and I think he looked fine and fantastic. But again, we get the barbed wire bat again, Lucy or whatever her name is. I don't know. I really don't know.
Either.
It
just feels like something's sort of missing.
Missing. Yes.
It's not in a vacuum. It's totally fine. Like, it's an enjoyable match. Like, I like all the guys. If you need 15 minutes and you want to watch like a good main event match, it's very good. It's just, I don't know. Like, I think we both kind of echo the same feelings with this. Like, I don't feel it hitting a home run as much as everybody else does. It feels to me like a nice single or double. You know,
Right. Absolutely.
let's get to the let's take a look at what the final card is for NXT this weekend. We've got NXT Vengeance Day, Sunday, February the 14th, 7 Eastern, 4 p.m. We've got the finals of the Men's Dusty Rhodes Classic. MSK, man, they are awesome in the ring when you think of like ring work and just as far as like they're very young bucksy, like just like the things they do, the tandem offense. You got the grizzled young veterans, MSK grizzled young veterans on Sunday. What are your thoughts on these group of guys?
Yeah, I'm glad that the grizzled young veterans won the semifinals match. I thought a lot of people thought it was going to go the other way, but I thought they booked it the right way. This is going to be those guys are so. I know the characters may not pop, but these guys can get it into the ring, and I'm excited to see what them and MSK. I've been following those guys from Impact, from Indie days. This is going to be a contrast of styles. It's going to be very interesting. This match is going to be one hell of a match, and of course, the winners get a chance for a future NXT title shot too.
So the next two matches are going to include 7 phenomenal women. We've got the Women's Dusty Rhodes Classic final for the women with Shotzi and Ember, Shotzi Blackheart, Ember Moon taking on Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. I mean, all of these girls can go. You sort of got the dark with Shotzi and Ember, like the vampire-ish, evil spirits thing going on there. And then you've got Dakota Kai, who I would have never thought she could be a heel like this, this good of a heel. She was such like a white meat baby face for so long, and now she's just this badass heel. This match is going to be great.
When she turned, at the NXT takeover, I don't remember which one. When she turned, it was just it was an amazing turn. They did it perfectly. I love Raquel Gonzalez. I'm not the biggest fan on putting too much. Don't go over the top with these characters, especially on the women's side of it. We want to be believable. I love what Raquel Gonzalez has been able to do, what she's come from and what she is now, believable in everything she does. I don't know who's going to win this match, and I like it that way. Sometimes, WWE NXT will let you know, okay, this is probably who's going to win. I really don't know who's going to win this match. Of course, you get a title shot with Nia and Shayna if they're still the champions, but they may not still be the champions by the time they get a title shot. This is going to be one heck of a tag team match.
In the women's title triple threat, we're going to have Io Shirai versus Mercedes Martinez versus Toni Storm. I've called Mercedes Martinez matches in person. She is incredible. She's such a great, this like a badass ring worker. You got Io Shirai, who is on any short list of the best women in the world. My personal favorite, I think if I had to pick one woman to get behind as the big star and to build up, it might be Toni Storm. It might be. I think personally, I love everything about her in the ring. She's fiery. Her ring work is incredible. This match can absolutely steal the show. I would love to see, and I wonder if it's a triple threat match for the reason of sort of what we were saying with the Bobby Lashley U.S. title match. Is this a way to have Io get beat without really getting beat, and then just set up her contender for what would be the WrestleMania NXT?
It's a good point, and it really does feel like they're pushing Toni Storm, right?
Yeah.
If you look back at the last several weeks of NXT, if you look back at Royal Rumble, anything that Toni Storm has been a part of with other women, you remember Toni Storm more than the rest of them. It just sticks out. Her look is great. Her attitude is great. She was phenomenal at NXT UK, the NXT UK brand. It would be a travesty now look, I love Mercedes Martinez. I would not be upset if she won it. It's okay, but I think it's a travesty. I guess I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. Toni Storm, it's her time. I think she's deserves.
I knew what you were saying. Though.
She's a great person. I've seen her in person several times. A great veteran. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it, because she does. She's a very, very hard worker. But Toni Storm, what she's done since coming over from NXT UK has been 100% fire, and that's the name and the persona and the character that you remember every time you see a women's match she's involved in is Toni Storm. She deserves the title. It should be hers this weekend.
I think Mercedes is probably, and I don't know her personally, like what her feelings are, but I think she's probably very content with this spot. I think she's going to be someone who will transition into being a trainer there from what I've read. And so she loves being in spots like this where she can help put people over and get to go out there in an awesome match with some of the best women around. So I think she kind of maybe is sort of like in the Daniel Bryan spot right now, where she kind of just feels happy to help be an awesome in-ring veteran and help put people over. Come on, Toni. Let's have Toni win this. And we got the 2 men's matches to close out the North American Championship. Johnny Gargano versus Kushida. He's another one where if you'd have told me like this Johnny Gargano as a heel, he is really damn entertaining. He's funny, man. He's funny.
His promos have, I don't think I've ever seen him do a bad promo.
No.
What he did with the wheelchair and the fake X-rays, that's just, and to be from Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns, and just have that, you just want to hate the guy more, and he cheats week in and week out. I don't know if he gives up the title here or not. It's probably somebody we see probably sooner rather than later on the next stage. I don't know.
I agree. I think that this comedy version of him is going to make Vince want to pull him up even more.
Yes.
Seeing okay, well, a year ago he was this small guy who could wrestle these awesome 30-minute matches, but is that going to translate? And now I can see Vince watching some of his clips and going, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be great.
Yeah, he would be a perfect fit, I think, on Raw. I mean, if you can wrestle and can do comedy. So I don't know I don't know if he can if he drops the title this week, this weekend, but it'll be an entertaining match. Kushida could go.
In the main event, Finn Balor, Pete Dunne, NXT Championship. You've got Finn, who I think if you said like every Finn match and everything that he's done since returning to NXT has been fine. It's not been bad. It's been like above average to good. I like him. He does definitely make things feel a little more important, but I don't know. I think maybe it's just in me. Like I would love to see Finn just doing his work on the main roster and getting a little bit more exposure. But a match like this, I think, is like the sole, for me, like one of the sole reasons he's down there to help a guy like Pete Dunne become even more of a mainstream guy. Pete Dunne has been one of the best wrestlers in the world for about 5 years. And if you don't know Pete Dunne and you didn't watch the NXT UK stuff, and if you haven't seen some of his stuff at NXT, watch this match, because I can just guarantee this is going to be an awesome match.
Yeah, and I feel that Balor may drop the title here. I don't know what tells me that. I don't know why. I'm the same with you. I'm a huge Finn Balor fan. Love it. The guy deserves to be on TV week in, week out. He deserves titles, the persona. He has the look. He can go. It just feels like, it was over the top. I know why they brought him back, and put him down here to give some NXT some mainstream recognition if they needed it. But I could see Pete Dunne winning this title and being the NXT champion without a doubt. That he can go. Let him go and carry the belt and have some badass matches. And maybe we get Finn on the main roster here in some sort of Mania feud, because if Finn wins it, who's next? Who's next for Finn Balor here? I mean, there could be hundreds of great matches every week, but we got to build a feud a little bit too, right?
I agree. Finn would be just like right now. I mean, when we're looking at the layout of the main roster right now, I mean, Finn, wouldn't it be awesome to just inject Finn into something with Drew? Like, how much better would that be than a lot of the other possibility? And I don't think they're going to do that, but just like brainstorming. So that's why a guy like Finn up on the main roster for whatever reason, and they haven't been using the demon thing, like, you can bring that back, whatever you want to do, like regular Finn, demon Finn, any of it. There's no reason this guy is not at the very least an upper mid Carter that you have in the IC title, like US title range, and you slot him into the main event when you want. But honestly, he should be a perennial main eventer. He's that good in the ring. He connects with the fans. Maybe his promo skill, like maybe he's not going to cut you a 20-minute promo every week, but there's a difference between being bad on the mic and not connecting with the fans than what Finn does. The fans like Finn. They connect with him. When he speaks, they listen, good or bad. I'm with you. Like, I want more for him. Not that a main event match against Pete Dunne is anything to slouch about, but I want him to be in the main event of Mania matches. He should, like we saw him at SummerSlam years ago when he came up and he beat Rollins. Like, he should be in one of those top 3 or 4 matches at Mania.
And maybe this is the way to do it here. Maybe he drops the title and maybe he's gone and I don't remember which brand he came from. I guess he was on Raw. I don't remember him being much on SmackDown, but I don't really think he's elevated the NXT champion.
I agree. No, he hasn't.
I don't feel that.
It's almost like people have gotten a little bored because they know, it's Finn. We're going to get a good Finn match. But we've sort of seen Finn come up through this and then go up to the main roster again. What is this? We kind of look at NXT for sort of new. We kind of want the new faces on NXT. We want to see them there for and then it feels like they kind of have a shelf life. Even guys like Ciampa, Gargano's been a little different because he's been able to really, really redefine himself and who he is. This is like a completely different version of Johnny Gargano than the one a year and a half ago was. But we get a little bit old with guys and gals after a while at NXT because it's not because we don't like them. It's because we want more for them. We want to see them come up and succeed on Raw and SmackDown. So I think this might be the time to give it to Dunne, and let's see if we can get Finn back up here on the main roster and inject him somewhere. Like, could you imagine just throw him in a match with Daniel Bryan on the SmackDown side?
Yeah.
Or give them 15 minutes to go out on 2 nights of WrestleMania now. You're going to need another good 15 or 20-minute match somewhere. Hopefully it's Finn, and we will be recapping this show and next week and talking about what happened on NXT. So yeah, like we said, I mean, there's so much content. There's so much wrestling going on. There's always stuff that we can pick out and like and critique. But it wasn't as much of a massive week coming off of the Rumble, coming off of Kenta showing up. Next week will probably be a little bigger because we'll have more to talk about in the recapping the NXT, and we're not too far away from the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, Elimination Chamber, and we get closer to seeing Cody big match with Shaquille O'Neal on March the 7th.
Chad Cooper, Koopa Loop, my man. We got the new intro for you each week before we come in, and we loved having a conversation with you all the time, buddy. Thanks for carving out another 45 minutes or so of your Thursday, and look forward to talking to you next week. Give the folks your plugs. Where can we find you, and what do you got coming up?
At the Chad Cooper on Twitter and Instagram, and big internet pay-per-view coming up on Saturday, February 27th on Title Match Wrestling, the Title Match Network. 3 promotions, Queens of the Ring, Ladies Night Out, and Hurricane Pro. It's in Beaumont, Texas. 20-30 big stars. Deonna Purrazzo, Heather Monroe, Evilise is going to be on there. So, check it out at the Chad Cooper, Twitter and Instagram. Hit me up.
We'll help you push that show over the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about it here before the few days before it goes on. Chad Cooper, thanks so much, buddy. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next week.
You too, man.
Koopa Loop, Chad Cooper helping us out with This Week in Wrestling. Don't go anywhere, folks. We will be right back here on That's What G Said. And that's going to do it for this episode of That's What G Said. A big thank you to everyone for tuning in, and a big thank you to all of our guests out there on this episode. NBA with Erik, ETOF21 Sports. We had Emily Gullikson joining us for Saturday Fairgrounds. We had Sam Sherman joining us for Saturday Sam Houston. And we had Chad Cooper on the weekly Wrestling with Chad Cooper segments here to bounce all around from WWE to AEW to NXT. Hope you enjoyed this episode, folks. The soothing sounds of Joey Cleveland closing it out.
Say